same place.
Paka.
Hey guys, welcome to a pretty interesting day here. 2 hours left in the close. We'll get you through to the close. Just watching this NUTX. Wow. What a crazy mover so far today. If you're looking for those parabolic type of stocks, we'll talk about this NUTX coming up. Yeah, it's ugly to say the least. Right across the board here, 2% for the S&P, almost 2% for the Dow, 3 now for the NASDAQ to the downside. So no bounce today, as we saw about this time yesterday. That was actually led by tech, if you remember. So there you go, 3% right back to the downside. Full percent for the TSX here in Toronto. Huge day for crude oil again. It was actually 4.5% at one point. 4.5% for both Bitcoin and Ethereum. It doesn't get much redder than that. Unfortunately, only energy down here, oil stocks specifically, in positive territory, having a pretty good day. SHW in the materials group back to the upside today in positive territory. AVY, just to name a few. Everything else, though, it's tech that's leading. You can see top left corner up here. Semiconductors specifically, software makers, and then the hardware makers all in negative territory. Consumer discretionary stocks led by some of the travel names that we've seen have pretty good strength over the past little while, back to the downside in a big way. 6.5%. Multi-week, multi-month lows coming into play for a lot of individual names today. WHR, there's UA, Under Armour, apparel makers under pressure big time as well. Remember GE, we'll talk about GE coming up here. Almost 11% for GE in negative territory there. AAL as well, Alaska and UAL, all the airlines getting absolutely crushed so far today. 2.18 right now for the S&P. We hope your day is shaping up pretty well here. Lots of opportunity. There's that. Even when the market goes down in a big way, tons of opportunity, tons of volatility. Welcome if you're joining us for the first time in the afternoon. We do this every single day. We'll take some time, go back and revisit some of the opportunities that were there for you at the open this morning. Make sure you're joining us every single day in the pre-market for an entire hour before the market gets going at 9:30. We'll get you set and ready with all the information you need to know. Neil's going to lead us off here today with a look at one of his trades from this morning.
Thank you very much. There is no way that we're going to look at anything but Tesla today. There might have been other trades that had cleaner setups, or maybe you're executed better, but we got to go with what's going to be the learning experience here. And Tesla, SSR today, down over 10%. Reality is the first level I was looking at was a dip buy. That's going to be the case. Elon Musk is going to be, he's buying Twitter. We all understand he's going to be distracted or whatever it might be, depending on how the structure goes. And I understand that narrative, why that would weigh down on Tesla shares. I did not see this one coming, obviously. So we go to the higher time frame here. I'm just going to point out, like, we had the earnings bounce. It was a huge beat for them. They got well into that 1080 stratosphere once again. But all I want to show you on the 60-minute chart is this 960 to 970 area. It stands out like an absolute sore thumb, right? It's the kind of shelf you will see us talk about on a daily basis. When a level like that breaks, a multi-day support level breaks, you should be looking for a short. I don't mind going long off a level like that. You can try it for a bit of a bounce. And I came in thinking when it was trading at 1,000, I like the dip buy at that price. It matters how you get there. So if you can see, it's kind of tight up at the top here. I wanted to show as much of the day as possible because I only went long. Didn't look at that short, but I wanted to be able to show you that right at 9:30, you had a pop into exactly 1,000. That is not 999. That is 1,000. And then the next minute, we actually get up to 999, and then we fade. So it was a pop and fade. That's the way we get there. And we did go pretty parabolic. The biggest extension to the downside was the 980 break that took us into that 60 area. And then there was a bounce. It found support. It tried to get to the upside. It rejected it hard. And I tried to get the long after it had made that support level. Fine, fair enough. When it stopped out and still slipped a couple of dollars, at this particular point, this is where, okay, we didn't have the short from the top because we weren't looking for it. That's reality. You're not catching that pop and fade unless you're looking for it. But once it breached that level on the daily chart, you can try for that dip buy. But you're in uncharted territories now. That is a clean momentum breakdown. It should have been a short. It was not. The only way that you're going to turn out positive when you've made a move like this and you miss out on that short is to have unbelievable patience. it's easy to have a bias to a direction and average in and try every single pop. Ooh, it got to 950. Let's go long there. Oh, it's trying to turn at 935. Forget about it. Allow it to go parabolic again into 925. That was the first time that I actually tried a scalp trade. Sat it out for $40 until we got to 9.25. If 50 was going to break, there was only two levels I wanted to see, and that was 25 and that was 900. It was the only plays that we're going to be able to make. I couldn't find myself in the short. And then even then, we're getting in, we're taking the initial scalp trade when we can, and then we're stopping it out. If it holds a level and puts a wick off bottom, then I'm getting back in on the way up, not on the way down, on the way back up, and I'm taking the scalp trade again, and I'm keeping the tight stop. And then it's the same thing when we get to 910, which I don't even like the 910 trade. I took it, and it started to work, and yeah, we may make a couple of bucks off of it, but truth of the matter is I don't like the trade. The trade that mattered was trading off of 900 the first time. It went to 905 and gave a nice bounce into 910 here. And then it comes down to how you want to play the 900 level. And this is a discussion that I had with Arun. Once it made this bounce off of 905 and could not get anywhere close to 10s, 15s, 20s, it couldn't make that breakout. At this point, 900 was going to be so crowded that I didn't want to try the long unless it broke. You almost wanted it to break 900, not carry through to like 97, 98, or maybe 97.50 or 90 or 95, and then try to catch it on the way back up. And ultimately, that's exactly what this trade is. Ignore these dark pool wicks. It does break 900 here. It cannot. You see the big volume spike as it's breaking, but it does not take out 998. It was about 998. 897.50 was going to be the level that I had. So we get 898. It comes back up, and we take 900 and a half. Once we're in that long position, it's scalp the first 5, scalp to 10, and I want the rest at 925. You can see it never even gets to 925, but we have to remain disciplined. Once again, if it tries to get back to that level, stop out at the bottom, no reload, because it's just too bearish to try and play a level like that again. If it's not going to be able to go to 925 there and make a bounce after it's put in this kind of a move to the downside, it just doesn't have it in it at this particular point. And I'll give you one more reason why we didn't reload at the bottom there. The context. When we got to this 903, when we got to this point and we're trying to make the bounce and break back to the upside, there was a context of the market bouncing and other names extending further, like Microsoft, Apple. Some of these names were really starting to make a decent sized bounce off the bottom. And this could barely make any move relatively. So Tesla, its weakness was there. But the key thing is no averaging in to the longs. It was all one entry and then have your stop out when you're against the grain like this. It should have been a short, but I was not looking for it. But we came away positive because every stop was tight and we took profit along the way every single obvious chance. There was no getting away from trading Tesla today. The question is, could you be long and not be down? Managed to do it here today, but extreme discipline. I'm not sure I want one in the afternoon. We'll see what happens, but what an unbelievable day for Tesla.
Crazy moves for Tesla, crazy moves for Twitter, considering as well on the same front there. Both were discussed. If you joined us in the pre-market this morning, make sure you do so every single day and grab the watch list every day we send it out, guys. Absolutely free. Had both of those on it this morning. Let's go to the other side of the story here then to kick things off. Welcome back, everyone, if you're just joining us. Twitter, 3.5% to the downside here, guys. Not expected whatsoever. We thought this was going to be a fairly boring trade after the news comes out late in the day yesterday. The deal gets done. Everything seems finalized. And we come in today and it's done nothing but go absolutely straight to the downside. 3.4% right now. We're back below 50, trying to, in fact, hold right now below 50, which was that kind of consolidation from yesterday. But wow, what a move for Twitter here.
Yeah, I mean, this is unexpected, obviously, but at the same time, it's the further it gets away from 54.20 and this deal being completed, the only thing that Neil and I were thinking, I was just thinking, like, what could possibly cause this deal not to go through? It can't be all these other FTC issues. It's the only thing that may be an argument is going to be national security, but that's a stretch. That's a stretch to say the least. But I don't know how they would play that off. But It's backing off, but to be fair, from the charting perspective, if it comes off this far away, the further it gets away from this 54.20, the better of a trade it is because of the unlikelihood that this deal gets broken, right? So the further you get, the better drift you get to the upside towards the closing price of this deal. So right now, obviously, we started the day at 52, we're down at 50, so you now have an extra $2 to potentially make if you purchase it into the actual close, and the deal is closed. That's the big thing. It has to close. So for now, as it backs off, the more of an opportunity you get. The further it comes back away from that price point, the better the opportunity it gets. And the other big thing is technically you have a ton of resistance, previous resistance, which typically you wouldn't, for a buyout, you really wouldn't look into. But at any point, there could just be buyers waiting here to do the exact same thing, which is find the support level, do some buying, and now you have extra space to the 54.20 run-up, which is right here, this red line. So we have space now. We have $4.20 if you purchase it right now. But again, that's like 6 months, maybe 9 months out before you get paid out on this. So definitely opportunities presenting themselves, but it is doing an inverse move than you would have expected for a day like today. But again, the market's down 3%, almost 3% here on the NASDAQ. So taking a rough ride as Twitter goes to the downside.
So here's what I'll say, and I'm not going to, this is not, it's not meant to be a political rant or anything along those lines, but let's just talk about what could possibly be some of the reasons. As you said, Arun, this is not a merger. There is no antitrust problem here. You're going private. You're taking a company private, and what Bezos talked about with China in his tweet, that's his own opinion. Were they to go this route and block a deal for that reason, that would be opening up a gigantic can of worms that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I cannot see that happening. All that being said, you are now looking at when it was below, it just broke $50, by the way, Twitter. But when you're below 50, and it might still be true here if we run the dirty math in your head, at over 10% annualized rate of return if you hold it till 54.20, assuming it closes at the end of the year. And the fact that it sold off as strongly as it did meant that it cannot only be people profit taking, or there's some aspect of people thinking it's not going to happen. It gets pretty appealing if it closes below 50 and hangs out there long enough. It gets pretty appealing to maybe stash that money away. But if you think the market's going to do better post those earnings that we're getting tomorrow, fair enough. But man, 10% annualized return. I just can't see any way the deal doesn't come through. It's getting enticing for me to look at. This is not Activision where there's a chance that the DOJ blocks it. And that's why you wouldn't buy Activision and clean up on your 10% premium or whatever it is at this point. This is a totally different ballgame. It seems crazy to me that this deal would not go through. I don't want to use the word criminal, but ridiculous is probably the word that makes sense to me if they were to somehow block this deal. I guess it could happen. I didn't think we'd see $50 today. I traded it a couple of times off the 50 break and got away from it. I wish I had stayed true. But either way, Twitter under 50, wow, that's not a bad annualized return in a weak market. That's the best way to think about it.
That's the key here, and the overall thought is, if you have to put some money somewhere going forward, even if it's only until the end of the year, when does it start to get attractive for bigger buyers? But interesting day, obviously, for Twitter shares. Oil, the other big mover today, it was negative when I sat down in the pre-market this morning, has done nothing but go straight back to the upside this morning, all the way to 103. We are pulling back slightly here with about 15 minutes to go in the session for crude oil. 3.75% for oil right now. That being said, not such a great day with the overall market weakness for individual stocks in this group, guys. We had definitely a trade, definitely some opportunity right out of the gate this morning for oil stocks, but they are coming back now as well.
Well, Neil will talk about the individual names. I'm going to go right back to crude, and we're going to talk about crude since we've been talking about crude for a couple weeks now inside this box here, which is 110 up top, 92 down below. You trade it. Anytime it gets into the 95, look for longs into 92. Anytime it gets north of 105, look for potential shorts into 110. That's about easy as you can possibly get on a range trade. This is a straight up range trade. It's working into a wide range. It's almost $18 wide, possibly 20, with a little bit of flexibility underneath that 22. But you got to understand, anytime we come down that far, crude had a rough day yesterday, to say the least here. From 101, we put down that 95-ish low. I think we've got 95.28 on the low end. And then as Brendan showed you guys right at the end there, it rallied right into the 230 close. It rallied like $2 to the upside. So that's why you see this tail on the daily. And now we open the day today. If I go to the 60-minute chart, what do you get? you get similar action. We kind of stalled out a little bit around that 99 to 100 area, came down. That was at 5 a.m. Again, remember, crude runs on a different schedule, so it's not waiting for the North American equity market to open like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. It's already going. So here we are, bouncing into that 9 o'clock open. We're already at, it looks like around 99 to 100, and then there goes crude to the upside north of 102 now. And we still have another $2 in space to the upside before we get some resistance. So crude is definitely working inside of this band, 110 up top, 92 down below, and you just range trade this until the range gets broken. It's pretty obvious. It's been in play. I say it's obvious, but at the same time, you got to be willing to take this. Remember, each penny is $10 in crude because of the leverage on the crude contract. So each contract, $10 per penny that it moves. So be aware that you need to have one margin. You need to be able to trade it. You also need to know the expiration dates, Brad. Brad, I'm looking at you for expiration dates because, hey, crude went over to the M contract, the June contract, last week, Brad, just last week. So, no, it happens monthly, my friend.
Where is this?
Crude is moving to the upside. Yeah, where is that slipper? So crude is moving to the upside. We are on the June contract as of right now. You need to look up the expiration calendar, Brad. Anyone who's trading futures, the one thing you do not want to make a mistake on, equity is different. On crude, something that's deliverable, you do not want to you do not want to be holding onto a contract as it goes into expirations because it is not cash settled. It is deliverable. So do not make that mistake. So here we go, crude back into the range, 110 up top, 92 down below. If we go another few bucks, maybe a potential short in the next couple of days. I don't know. If at this pace, possibly. But then again, once you get the breakout, hey, wide open to the upside, wide open to the downside. There you go.
In fairness, you guys hear us and it's not like we're not making fun of Brad. Like essentially, we just he loves to learn, right? So we're just educating, and it's an important point, like you said, about getting your expirations correct and trading the right instrument. That is very, very important. I'm going to talk about Nutx in a second. I just want to come to Oxy for a quick second because you mentioned crude making that move to the upside. Oxy's pulled back off 57 resistance just now. There was one shot at the open if you're looking at it when it wicked down to 55 or just after the open, and it's now looking like it wants to retest it. There's been some relative weakness in some of the individual names. I think every single time we have a bounce, you're seeing a little bit of that play out. The name that I wanted to talk to you was a good point. As we're doing the trade of the day, and if you have not been watching the market today, then there's things happening that aren't Tesla. I'm just going to call it Nutx. I know it's Nutx, but it's just in my head, it's Nutx. So
definitely Nutx.
If you hear me say that, that's all we're talking about here. Someone was saying, why was I short it at 13, 14? I'll show you why. A, because I didn't flip to a long when I should have when it broke $9, and that's another story. Like first of all, that's another story why I didn't like that long, but also this halt price here at $7, the initial morning halt price, when it held that support, I decided to short it off of the high into that 7. Like I was short 7.55 or 60 into the $7 and then reloading it. When really what it had done is get up to a halt price, hold that as support, and then set up for a break at 8 or maybe a break at 9. Instead, I'm essentially shorting that move there. At least I didn't sit there in front of the $9 trade. Like that's the only thing I did good today was not sit in front of the $9 trade. But then I was taking pot shots. Pot shot at 9.50 that didn't work, and then 2 shots at this 10.50, which did, it was turning into Victor. I was in the money about like a dollar on the short at 10.50 on Nutx, thinking everything is dandy. It's about to drop back into this 8 range. And then it just, next thing you know, you're stopped out. Volume just comes in. It was so strong. I didn't even try the curl at 11.50. I did take a shot at 12 when it got to 12.50 there, 12.25 to 12.50, and essentially just keep taking these pot shots because I'm against the grain. And it's just like the Tesla trade, right? I'm on the wrong side of it, but I don't want to chase it. At this point, I'm only looking for the short. When it halted down, at this point, it's not to say that you're going all in, but I'm only shorting it. Once it had that halt to the downside, I played it off the open with an average price of 13. It stopped out the high, and then it was decision point because it was getting up to the trade of the day. And I had multiple entry points there. Like I know it shows my average price at 13, 14, but I had 2 entry fills. I had 13.50. I had 13 and change, but I got in the better price first. So as I was getting out of the trade, it's going to show that worst price, or that last entry price on the way back down. it did make that pullback, but each time, and even still now, the whole time I was stopping out if this thing broke 14. So I had a high of day stop the first time on the halt. When I got back into it, there was never a chance of not, and I'll get to making top wick because it was AVDL, which I showed it 3 times. I'll show you that chart. I can even show it to you right now. If you were trading these, the consequence of trying to make one of those, when you're sitting in the money and it's like, oh, look how great that short is. It's now like a couple of bucks in the money or 10% of the money, whatever, yada, yada, yada. The other side of that is when you're making that kind of a trade, sometimes you got to accept this happening to you, which is make the top wick, you're out, and you never get back into it. But if this continues to go and pulls a Nutx, it could be at $7, at $8. Like you have to have an out somewhere. And on Tesla, that's how I'm actually up on it today, is because each time we just took the out. It hits your stop, you just take the stop, you're grown at it, and then you make your next move. And sometimes you had the high, you had the best price, and you get stopped out. Now this time on Nutx, I think I fought it entirely too much without going into any kind of a long trade. But ultimately, it's the fact that each one of these had a clear stop, and there was no, I'm just getting into oblivion. And even now, look at it fail to get through really the first pullback level. It can't even break $11. Like I got a target at $10 here because it doesn't feel like it wants any part of $8 or $9 at this point. So you got to temper your expectations sometimes. We'll talk about YOLO trades, and there's always a place for them. I think when you're against the grain is not always the best time to try to put a YOLO trade on. You should always have a structure.
Before we get into some earnings to come, worth mentioning DWAC, big pop here, guys, on volume. Once again, I feel like this is the 3rd or 4th time today, but still going here. Volume coming back in, up 15% now. Just broke $40 once again for DWAC. Not seeing anything yet as far as a reason why, but we'll keep an eye out. Yeah, I put tech or bust on the board today. I think it's kind of fitting going into aftermarket tonight, tomorrow, and Thursday. The biggest of the biggest tech earnings to come. Is the market in trouble if any of these end up being negative?
Well, it remains to be seen because you know what? As bad as the day is today, down 2.7% on the tech index on NASDAQ, you got Microsoft, you got Google, that's number 2, and I believe number 4 or number 3 on the list. Number 4 actually on the list, I believe, in terms of weights. And that, if you get both of them in the same direction, positive, you're definitely going to get a huge run up tomorrow leading into the next batch of major tech earnings. So you have a lot of big names that have a lot of influence in this index. Is it going to be tech or bust? I guess we'll find out after 4:10 p.m. today because there's going to be some interesting moves, especially in these futures. Reason being, futures don't close until 4:15. These earnings, these reports should be out by then. So there's going to be a few minutes where you can get your hands on some futures contracts, whichever direction they go, and try to run them into 4:15. And then remember, they open up again at 6 p.m. So you're only down for an hour and 45 minutes before the market's back open, trying to make sure that this market has not been left behind when these tech earnings take off. So take off, downside. I mean, let's just put it this way. We're under the assumption, or I'm working under the assumption this is going to be good. But if in the event that we don't get good numbers, man, this market is in trouble to say the least. Because hey, let's take a quick look, and I'm going to go right to the Nasdaq index here. Sure, the daily is near March lows. You know, a lot of individual names have either broken or very close to these March lows. But let's not even work with the daily here. Let's work with the weekly. This is the weekly. We're finally turning around after spending so much time up here in March. We got one leg to the downside, bounced back to 15,000. Now we're doing the second leg to the downside. And if you crack this 13,000 to the downside, you open it up. You really do open it up down into the mid 12s. That's another 500-600 points before you hit support on the weekly chart. And then you lose 12,000. That's it. But just over 1,000 points, you get Apple, you get Microsoft, you get Amazon, and you get Google. That's all you need, essentially, to run it 1,000 points. If they all come out bad, this is going to be ugly very quickly. Highly unlikely they all come out in one direction, though. There's going to be some good ones. There's going to be some bad ones. It's going to be a matter of how are the first two, and then how's the market going to react to Apple when that comes out. But the thing with Apple, though, that one always comes out after 4:30. So, you know, you probably won't get a chance to play it. You'll just come back the following day. And you're like, ooh, nice surprise there as this market makes a move. But definitely not looking too good right now on the weekly chart. But Tech earnings can change the game very quickly, and that's what you got to watch out for.
Yeah, and on the individual front, like for Microsoft specifically, I mean Alphabet too, but for Microsoft specifically, if you pull up the daily, you can see it's not even just about like March lows. For Softy, that's this 270 area is a January bottom, it's a February bottom, it's the March bottom, it's the recent bottom. It's pretty much everything at this point. It was a breakout back in 2021 around this price as well. A jailbreak there, finding support above that price. So, you know, if they disappoint, Microsoft was leading the way at some points in this bounce that we had earlier on today, showing you that when it goes, it's been dragging the market with it. If we might not wait around for the rest of the tech earnings if Microsoft can't hold the 270. And it's not just about whether they beat and guide and look fantastic. Like, they could have great numbers, but if we put a rejection of the 270 level anyways because it just wasn't enough, well, it's going to get pretty ugly. We just showed you like multi-day gaps, and Microsoft will not do a Tesla. That's just not going to happen. But we showed you what happened with a multi-day level like this on a daily chart goes. You can start getting the types of moves that you're not anticipating. And for Microsoft, that could be like a down 5 or 6%. If Softy goes down 5 or 6%, we're screwed on the NASDAQ. You know, we're going to put brandy in this instead of tea or coffee or add some to it, because that's what you might as well do. As for the trade this afternoon, it's been pretty good. Like, Softy had a great bounce. When I was noting how Tesla couldn't get off the bottom and things like Microsoft were bouncing off the bottom, it was because I was trading Microsoft. Like, when it got to that 72 double bottom, it got right to 275. It couldn't get through that price. We'll watch to see how it trades off it before. But that was an easy one and done. Got a similar one on block right now off the 100 level. But whether you play the futures off these little bit of these bounces or trade Softy, it's very clear that we're sort of teetering on the edge. You know, we break these types of support levels and it's not going to be pretty at all.
All right, let's go to Tesla here. It's been a long time. I was just looking at the daily chart for Tesla to try and come up with the last time this actually happened. And it's been quite some time. There were a few days going back to relatively close to when this thing came back down the first time. But I mean, it's been a long time, guys. 10%, it's on SSR. Neil, we got your take this morning, but I mean, 1,000 was an absolute magnet for this thing going back a week or so ago. I mean, how much does this have to do, I guess, with what's happening with Elon and maybe what's not then going to be paid attention to on the almost said Twitter, Tesla side of things?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to look at on Tesla was, 1,000 was a big number, and you know, it was a round number. It's been flirting around 1,000, so you don't put as much weight to it. But what I wanted to see is how is the volume flowing this morning in Tesla. This is I've made this a volume chart. Each bar is 100,000 contracts. Look at the first leg of this. It is straight. This kind of sell side action is a large batch sell. You don't get this kind of action unless there's program activated selling. This is way too directional. You're starting at 1,995 and you don't get a little bit of relief until you get to that support level at around 960 something, 967, around 965. Once you break that, another leg of selling down to 943, and then you actually get some trading done. But this initial push here, it looks about 2 million shares, maybe, is way too steep for this to be for this to be actual selling. So which makes me think, hey, you know what? We were thinking, at least I was thinking, part of this deal with Twitter was going to be, you know, put the shares on as collateral for this deal, right? Half finance, half collateral. The $20 billion or $22 billion was collateral in shares. But you know what? What if he actually sold the shares? That's what I look at this thinking, like, this is way too directional. Someone's got way too much juice in how many shares to unload this. This is a lot of weight that it takes. At $1,000, it takes a lot of weight to move a stock like this in one direction for this long with this much movement. So that's the only thing I can think of in terms of Tesla's movement, and then you get a lot of trading back and forth. And this is what normal trading looks like when it comes to this kind of volume, but that is just way too directional. So Tesla has now broken through the last support level that was holding it up, which was that 965. Now we're to the downside. We are wide open. If we wanted to take a look at 800, we can. There's nothing really stopping us in terms of support. So it's going to be up to the market and how these earnings come out to decide whether Tesla, this was just a one-day sell event that actually is now going to be reversed, or is this going to be a continued tech weakness move like, Brendan, you were referring to earlier. So this is going to be, the story of Tesla is going to be influenced by how the rest of the market reacts after earnings in the next couple days.
And speaking of earnings, like let's not pretend for a second that there's at least a little bit of the way the velocity of these moves is related to what we saw with Netflix. Like there is that spook. Like you have seen in the last, since look, this is a new year. We talked about valuations mattering. We'll get to Teslas in a second, but we talked about valuations mattering. We've seen Meta have a 25% drop on earnings. Right, we've seen Netflix get woodshedded 35% on the first day after its earnings. So, Tesla going up the way that it did, when you pull the daily chart up, this move today, it's crazy, but in the context of what we've seen, like when it got to that 1250 high, did we not already see it put a day like this? Yeah, we did. When it got to the lower high off 1200, did it have several falls back like this? Yeah, it kind of did. So I'm saying to myself here, this is why I'm so angry with myself for not even thinking about or looking at aggressively at any kind of a short trade, because it's done this before when you had these kind of tops. Now, there wasn't an obvious top here, and that's what was tricky about it. There was 1,000. It couldn't hold the 200 period moving average, whether that matters or not. At this particular point, I think you're right. And the reason why that it was a good support level. The first support that came in, like you said, Arun, was at that level that we liked. However, sometimes it's about how it gets there. It was a failed breakout right at a key price level at 1,000, momentum trade to the short, and the way that it traded into it simply indicated, and this is the difference between watching a stock as it gets to your price and just sort of having an order sitting out there because you like the level. If you're not paying attention, you might not like the way that it comes down. And the way that it came in to give that fill was ugly. For anybody that was looking for a long trade. It was just entirely too strong selling, and it didn't really do any kind of a significant consolidation. Like I had a 1 minute chart up to show you that it kind of consolidated, but you pop a 3 minute up and it doesn't even look like it did much of anything and stall. If anything, it was a better move at 985 here. So Tesla under pressure, maybe Elon did sell, maybe somebody else sold. It could have been Kathy Wood. People are putting that one in the chat there as well. But it might not be done. If it can't hold up here, it's 130 PE at the beginning of the day today. Who knows what it is right now? Ford's like half that. It's still pretty expensive, and that's part of the equation too. If we get to see that 666 again, we love it. And like you said, 750 to 800 is a pretty good level as well. And you can't write those things off. You just got to be ready to buckle up. And if we get those prices, be willing enough to buy them if they come back.
Still watching DWAC here, just broke 42 now, guys, which is going back to these highs a couple days ago, now 16%. So lots of people circulating that story that we mentioned yesterday. I think it was Fox that first reported that Trump had said he will not rejoin Twitter regardless of what happens as far as the deal with Elon goes. So maybe more to come on that front, but DWAC catching quite the bid right now. Let's go over to another one that we talked about this morning, General Electric. They came out this morning with, they reported, first of all, but also their forecast that was absolutely slashed in more than half, down huge in the pre-market this morning. And then, the overall market weakness just took this thing all the way down to $80 again for GE.
The frustrating thing about General Electric is I think it was $85 was the on the daily chart. Since the reverse split, $85 was the last support level. That was your March support. Below that price, it's a short trade. It had already breached it pre-market. Unfortunately, it already breached it pre-market, and then it was trying to hang out above. At the open, it was essentially consolidating right at 85. And it's not about making excuses here. It's about admitting mistakes, right? Like I had a stop order for when it was above 85 at the open. I had a stop for when it reclaimed 85 for a short trade, and I only crossed down to 84.77. Like that was my limit price. I didn't set a market sell order. It was a limit order once 85 broke. I thought that was aggressive enough. It was not. There was no fill, and it just absolutely dropped. The only saving grace was saying once it got through that pre-market bottom at 83 and we'd missed out, just try and short it off at the first available level to catch a part of it. All morning long, it's like got to be able to get into the short somewhere because we didn't get what we wanted. And even then, I still got out of it too early to $80. It's back at 80 now. It ended up cleaning that 80 level, cleaned its clock. The market was dying at that point. But sometimes it can be a very tricky thing to short something at a low like that, because you're not it gets that far down past what you like is your entry price, And it's a tough pill to swallow to miss out on the move and then short it at a price you don't love as much. But that's about playing with the momentum. Exactly what we didn't do on Tesla, or I did not do on Tesla today, was something that I was able to pull off on General Electric. But the difference was I came in thinking short on General Electric. It's much harder to do that when your initial thought was a long, to be able to reverse it when you see it going in the other direction. It's easy to try and say, okay, well, I got to find a short somewhere in the stock that I thought was going to die based on horrible. You can't guide the way that they did and expect to hold up in a market like this. So, GE was only going to be a short for me. It's a little bit easier to short these short the pops on bottoms on something like a General Electric today.
Yeah, General Electric was one trade around the 85 mark, and that's the level we marked off. Both Neil and I marked it off. It would just move very quickly through there. So I was thinking, hey, you know what? Let's see if it can actually bounce back above 85, preferably into that 87, and then maybe if we get a fail, I'll go for the short. Yeah, no, that's not how GE decided to work today because, hey, we got below 85. We were sitting at 85 right at the open, I believe. We were sitting around 80, yeah, like 85. 85.20 something or so. We were sitting right around here, 85 and change, and then opening move down through 83, and then just trend down all day. That's all you got pretty much for GE. There's one trade to be made. It was to the downside, and once you miss that, all you can do is now mark off some levels, come back to it later, maybe the 88s, maybe the 89s, depending on how we come back through this 85. One thing I wanted to do is I went through the chat. I'm glad this person put it up. I forgot the name there, is that they said the futures are actually 5 p.m. closes Eastern time. And I was like, wait, what? And then I went through CME's website. Yeah, it's a 5 p.m. close now on Globex, which is, what's that? For us, it's slightly different, but 5 p.m., I was usually under the impression that Globex hours were 4:15 Eastern time. So thank you for clarifying that. At least now I know. Our servers still go down at 4:15 here, but Globex is still up for another 45 minutes until 5. They're only down an hour a day, apparently. So opening up some trading here for now. You can trade Apple earnings as well because they release at 4:30 and change. Volume's going to be thin, but at least now we know Globex is good till 5 p.m. Eastern time.
Still seeing some volume, guys, on this NUTX back to the downside. It failed again there at 11, trying to get back to the upside. But watch that low. Might get broken. FRGE. FRGE, not FGRE. Still moving. I don't know why my chart's not working. I was going to mention those two. And then also, guys, Twitter back to 50.5 on huge volume. But NUTX, pretty good fade, to say the least, today.
Yeah, look, I'll do one of these ones because I can't really, I hesitate to ever celebrate like these ones, right? Like if I don't trade something well, it doesn't matter that the last trade was a winning trade, and I'm not happy with the way that I traded Nutx today. So we kind of got that out of the way, but I did tell you guys I was going to get all out of it at 10. It just bounced off $10, and maybe it breaks, and maybe it does get down, $9, $8, something along those lines. But carrying it out at $10. Given how bullish it's still managed to find, it's still finding buyers every dollar or so, right? It just fell from 14. It halted down at the top. Think about that. It halted down at the top and then failed again at the high. And it still didn't halt down again. It's resisting halts. It's not fully capitulating at this point. Yes, it's pulled back, but this thing was $4 and change, yesterday, and this morning when it initially broke out, it was at $5, and we're still well over a double up from there. So that's how crazy this kind of move is. And it's not the only thing running, by the way. This HYMC, you'll remember from meme fame as well, that just broke the high of the day. So this is starting to go. And this is what you want to look for in Power Hour. What's going? What's moving? The market is going to be front and center. And we'll definitely want to talk about that as well. But HYMC on the move. I'm not sure Nutx is completely done. If it holds 10, it might take another shot at the high of the day. I think it can be shorted at that 14. But if you do, you got to have a very tight stop. DWAC is going absolutely crazy. I mentioned that I have Square, and there was nothing scientific about it. It was $100. When the market was putting in a test of the low, I'm just going to quickly show you on the NASDAQ this way. When the market kept testing these bottoms on the NASDAQ almost to a T, I was looking for things that were putting in lows, higher lows. So Square was putting in a higher low 100 versus $99.80. Microsoft was putting in a higher low just above that 272. It wasn't actually testing the bottom. Eventually, it did test 100, managed to hold it, but I am still holding some. It's gotten to VWAP. I want to see if we can actually get back up to 103.5, 104 if the market tries to rally. Otherwise, I want to slap a trail at 101.50 to lock in about $1.25 on the square on the block trade, just to see if it can go here. But do not sleep on this HYMC. I haven't paid for shorts yet, but I probably will.
And I probably will not. Actually, no, it's not. I probably will not. I definitely will not be paying for shorts. I'm just managing out the positions I've got from this morning. So Uber, we had Uber earlier from way up in this morning, and here we are actually walking away from this. Finally, although I like Uber's trade, given how the market's been doing, and given how Uber had very little upside momentum to actually get going, I'm just going to dump it, take the penny win, right? I just covered the fees, walked away from the trade here, and the only one we've got left is Marvell from this morning. It hasn't broken the stop. The only reason I'm long, I got one terrible price. Whoa, now it looks terrible, but I got that price north of 60 here in the 31 area. We broke down. Initial sell with the market. We bounced around these 20s, 58.20, 58.30. Again, my stop was underneath 58. That's why we're still not out of it. But in the event that we actually break through these 59s one more time, I think it's time to just call it a day on these longs here for Marvell, as well as I noticed that DWAC is still going. 42 is gone on DWAC as it wants to take a look at its highs once again after trying to get back to 40. So a lot of activity in other names that are trying to get hot, as the futures market is bouncing by a little bit here, back above 42.10.
Lots of huge movers in the market today. Good opportunity to take a second and talk about a question that we get a lot here on the show, and that is YOLO trades. Yeah, we're going to discuss YOLO trades. When, if ever, guys, should we put everything into one position? Lots to discuss here on the risk side of things, but also when you get the moves that we've had in the market today, it's almost a little bit of hard to avoid when it comes to YOLO trades.
Yeah, look, a YOLO trade doesn't have to mean going all in on the trade. It can also mean putting like a normal size on and just holding for a much bigger move than you normally would because there's more upside. So there's lots of ways you can think about it. But the first thing you've got to consider is there the potential for that big break? Like, does it have the upside? Does it have a chance to give you that outsized move? Is the volatility going to be there before you even look at the play? And that's what you've got to identify first. I'm going to pull up Veru because 2 days in a row it gave YOLO trades. Arun had this one yesterday for a YOLO trade, which was better than the trade was today. But make sure you zoom back out, and when a stock has done something like this, like Veru, which already had a positive catalyst, made a monster run, I mean multiple runs. I can start with the daily chart to show you what it did before the $10 move. Like, it had broken out from $4 to $5, made a pit stop at 10 on the way to $17. But as it comes back down, it's got that squeeze potential, and you know it's there, and that's the key. When it could not retrace back, and I showed you that 10 on the daily chart, there's a reason, and then it held this level on Friday, and kudos to Arun for having this the next day when we came in, and it pulls that breakout. That is the definition of a YOLO opportunity. Because it's giving you a shot for tremendous upside. We're talking 11 to 11.50 break, all the way up to a $13 area before there's any real idea that it could slow down. And then on top of that, 14 to 15 up here was also resistance. That's a great return when you've got this nice double bottom in front of you. Like, that's a YOLO shot. It doesn't mean have no out. It just means that gives you your big risk to reward shot, and it's got the volatility to continue. Now, it gave you a similar trade today, off of the afternoon support from the day before, but it's not as wide of a range. It's more this 13 up to the 14.50, 15 area, which isn't quite as nice because you're buying the dip instead of buying the break. You were going against the grain initially to take that trade instead of just following the crowd when it was breaking out the day before. But you've got to identify, does it have the chance to go? And that's not always an easy thing to do, but sometimes it sticks out like a sore thumb. Low float, done it before, found support at a key level, there's your YOLO shot.
Yeah, I'm on the opposite spectrum there with YOLO and regarding anything related to that type of trading. I'm way too systematic, and I'm way too analytical with my risk. So I just can't get past the point of, hey, you know what? Let's just throw some money at this for the sake of throwing money at this. I can't do it. But going back to Veru's trade, although it was, everyone's in it for a different reason, Veru, as you can see from this chart here, I was actually long here in the pre-market. This is a trade we're talking about. I was long 1131, and this is a technical setup. Then that's why I went for Veru. I will go after any trade that is technically sound. I don't care if it's a name that's hot. I don't care if it's not. I will go as long as there's enough volume, and there will be enough volume. I will take the shot as long as I can control the risk. That's what I care about, controlling the risk. I want to see the hits. If I'm going to take a hit, I want to see it coming first, right? So Veru, I know that 1130 long. I liked it. I like the setup, so we went for the trade. We waited for it. We got out, some in front of 1250, and then it continued going. At that point, it's just a management trade, right? I'm just managing this position, and we finally got out in front of 14 here late into the session yesterday. So if I were to now go back to this chart and be like, you know what, why did I go for the long? I can explain it to you. Not because I felt like it, not because I thought it was going up. It's technically, there was an technical analysis, I guess. My approach to making an entry is, hey, you know what, we got above this. There's some support here. We tried to go down. We bounced a couple times. We finally got above, shows enough buy side action. So I went for the long. And I can justify that long being like, you know what, this risk was worth it because I have the reward. Now, I can explain it. That's my approach. If that's YOLO, then sure. But I can explain it. I can get past that point. But I'm not going to just throw money saying, you know what, here's a lottery ticket. Let me just see if I win on this. Because I can use that capital elsewhere to make some money, right? So as a trader, I find that that's what you got to do. Where do you deploy your capital? And as long as you're strategic with how you deploy your capital, then it's trading. It's not YOLO. But again, everyone has different approaches, and to each their own. It's just my approach is more analytical, and I just like to see where my money's going and how much I'm going to be putting up in risk. And there's times where I don't take the trade because the risk is too high, and that's just part of it as well.
Understanding exactly what your trade setup is and understanding exactly what the risk involved in that trade setup is the key. Yes, there will be times in the market when putting more risk towards those trades is definitely worthwhile. So a great couple of points there, guys, on YOLO trades. VXX, if you remember, was once a volatility ETF. Barclays, going back to, what day was it? It was the end of March. Barclays came out and said, hey, guess what? We're not going to do anything with this instrument anymore, adjusting it towards or away from volatility. So that's when the volume on this thing, if you go to a daily chart, can we maybe move the lower third there for a second? I just want to highlight, maybe I'll just do this and move the chart up. There we go. So that was when the volume just went absolutely to sleep on VXX, and it's done nothing ever since. So just a heads up, guys. 9.5% here for that VXX thing, whatever it is now.
Yeah, we don't fall, we don't have days like today without volatility rising. And I think that's the other way to make the trade. And shout out to all the boys and girls in the chat that were hollering out. Make sure you trade it, whether it's an indicator or not, or whether you're actually putting the trade on in volatility specifically to just go long. That's the other way to catch this end of a coin here. As we were talking about YOLO trades, and I'm not saying, look, shorting DWAC at 42 is not a YOLO trade, but I did mention in the chat that I should have been short this, not here, but like here, I should have been short this the first time because that's the setup I'm going to take. It was a breakout. And I stopped out and did in reverse at 38, and I can ask myself why I didn't do that, but whatever, we're past that point now. But when it got up to this 42 level and already failed once on a parabolic move, it gives you a shot at that again. Even for the scalp trade, like it's going to be there. Like I should be on the bid in front of 41, first level. It's already shown you that it wants to have some support down there. And then we'll look at 40.5 and maybe down to 39.5, 40 even. But it's the same thing we're looking at when DWAC made its run previously. On the 15-minute chart, I mean, I kind of cheated here, like when I said this is why I want to have the short up at that top. And I have my stop. Always willing to make the top wick and get out and get burned if you're going to take a trade like this. But ultimately, look at it on the 15-minute. Like there's no way, if the way that you trade involves finding things that move parabolic and going counter trend at the top, you're basically going to be looking for a short trade here. You're going to. Like that's... And we had to pay for shorts. It wasn't that expensive on DWAC, but ultimately you're going to make that trade. Now this is why I said it should have been a reversal trade. I had the short this morning off 38 and it was good, but why not have, I don't get it. Like, why not have a reversal to go into a long here? Look at the consolidation. When it cannot take out this low at 36 and you see it hold like that, that just solidifies the breakout because now it's put in a higher low off a high volume capitulation bottom and it holds support and coils up for a breakout. That's what you're looking for. So ultimately, it should have been a reversal at 38. I was never thinking about it as that kind of a trade here today. But once it gets to that top, you've missed out on the long, so what? It's a short off 42. If it works now, great. We've just able to take about 80 cents on the first leg. I'm looking to see if we can't get down around 40 for about $1.50 on the next. And then if it gets back down to 38, there's no way I'm holding for all the way back into 38. I'd look to something like 39, 39 and a half, and then get out of all of it. But that's the idea. And if you make the top wick and then it ends up falling after, so be it. You got to be willing to have an out somewhere.
All right, as this market actually is working with these lows, we're attempting to bounce off this 4,200. We're not getting that far. So I've got this chart out for you guys, and this is pretty much what we're dealing with here, which is the low of yesterday. Remember, we found some bids here south of 4,200, down to 41.95, and then we rallied 100 points only to reverse the entire thing today. We're coming right back to that level where we bounced from. So in the event that we are actually able to get below this 41.95-ish, 90, give it some flexibility because there will be some stops. So as long as we can get underneath and stay underneath, there could be a trade here before we even get to earnings, let alone trying to play Microsoft and Google earnings, because those will be hot. If we're going to play earnings, remember, because of the influence that Microsoft and Google have in the tech index, in the NASDAQ futures, if you want to play those earnings indirectly, you can just go into the NASDAQ because they will be volatile. They will be, moving fairly quickly. If I were to just pull up the level 2, compared the S&P futures or the E-mini contract, you can see this is what we're getting with, 50, 60, 70 contracts per level maybe. And then you go over the NASDAQ and what do you get? 5 maybe per level. So it's going to be pricey. It's going to be expensive and there's going to be a ton of slippage. But if you want to play the game, you could pay up and try to play the NASDAQ as well. But right now, S&P trying to find a bid here around this 4,200. We've bounced here before. Keep in mind, we're getting into the final hour, almost into the final hour here with about 10 minutes left until 3 o'clock Eastern time, which brings in, a decent amount of activity. In the final hour, that's when volume gets done here, especially going into those imbalances at 350. So what are we going to get going into 3 o'clock is going to be the question. Are we going to do a relief rally here, intraday relief rally, I guess? Maybe a few 10, 20 points or so. Is that even a rally at that point? No, probably need like 20 points to get a relief rally to even say it's a relief rally. So if we can get a move to the upside, it could open up the door. But right now, I'm boxing this in. 42.35 up top, 41.95 down below. So if we have a break through the bottom or the top, there could be a trade. But this is my whole thing, is that you've got to be very careful because as we get into the end of the day, things can get very volatile very quickly, especially if you're going for the short. Like I would be looking for the short if we broke through the bottom, but if we broke through the bottom and then there's a buy-side wave coming in as shorts are covering, I'm getting run over real quick. So I'm going to be very careful. Even if we break through the bottom, I need us to get underneath and trade underneath. Like we're talking, get underneath, try to bounce a couple times back above that 95, and if you can't do that, then we go for the downside.
Yeah, and look, I'm gonna do a bit of a celebration here. We might as well. I'll hit this key because it was a conversation Daniel O about DWAC might give a home run trade, and I'm not really going for it. But it got to that 40.50. We got the second out there, still maintaining the stop, not letting it get through that high, and then we'll see if it gets to 39.50. And sometimes it's really just about trading your own style. And one thing I love that Arun said there was if such and such happens, and it doesn't matter what that means for you, I'm getting run over. It's conceptualizing before you get into the trade what wrong means and what happens to you when you are wrong. Because it's managing a winning trade is what you want to be doing, right? Like what you want to be thinking about is what happens when it doesn't go your way, because that's just part of the game. It's going to happen to you. So let's think about that and then move forward from that type of an idea. Is just the way that we start. It's to start out there. And Alex, asking how my vacation was.
How was your vacation?
I can tell you. So I was away. You guys saw, and Arun was here. Been now for 3 weeks in a row.
3 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, I had the vid, man. It wasn't a vacation at all. It actually really, really sucked. But it's really cool to come back. And one of the best things about coming back was not only getting to see like the markets move like this, but when I left, Valeria just went live. right? She just started live trading. I showed you Tesla today, and I might be slightly up on Tesla today, but I think I traded it like absolute dog crap, to be perfectly honest. Valeria has been live trading for only a couple of weeks, and she was trading Tesla live and was up today. I can tell you right now, most trainees get their butt kicked if they even try to trade Tesla when it's making a move like this. So shout out to Ms. V. You deserve it. You kicked butt on Tesla today.
Neil, thank you so much. It's a special honor for me to hear that from you because, again, thank you guys for all your advices, for being such a great teachers. And guys, I'm as you every day here listening, trading with guys, and that's how I literally, from knowing nothing about markets, made some money today shorting Tesla actually, and made around $9 per share in the money on that name. And while I'm here, guys, if you want to support community and if you want to support me, my trading path, please make sure you smash the like button. 3,000 people watching us right now, so we would really appreciate any support. And back to you guys.
Yeah, Tesla, Ms. V making money on Tesla because she wants to buy a Tesla, I think. Well, actually, no, Ms. V doesn't drive, so she wants to be chauffeured in a Tesla. My bad. I correct myself.
You gotta drive a Tesla. What's the point?
Autopilot. See, she's not going to drive a Tesla. She's not driving it. Someone's driving it for her, or a car's driving itself.
But it's dead true. Like the bigger point there is this is what it's about. Like it's about trying to learn, about trying to get better, and sometimes keeping it simple, man. Like the market momentum was to the downside. Like it's not easy, and the reason you might look at a chart like that and say, of course, yeah, just short it. It's not easy to find a short. No. Or to have the balls to put it on in a stock like Tesla that has the fanfare that it does. So kudos to Ms. V. Like I'll tell you this right now. Like when I was a trainee. Like, are you kidding me, man? Like, I had tight stops on everything. There's no chance. Whatever the most volatile stock was in my first month of trading back in 03, I wasn't touching it with a 10-foot pole because it wasn't in me. And it's different now. Like, we'll trade these high flyers, but that's not an easy thing to do when you start out. And, sort of kudos for that. Tesla, by the way, is trying to make a bottom here at 885. I don't even want to hunt it, man. At this point, I like Square. I like what Square is doing. If it's going to be that off 100, it makes some sense to me. I wish I had gotten back into Microsoft. And maybe if I didn't, what the heck are these dark pool wicks up at 280? Anyways, these aren't real. We're trading at 273.50 on Microsoft right now. But the higher low that got put in has been a fantastic one on Softy. I just got into Square when it made this move. But if you got this, it looks pretty good. If the NASDAQ breaks out from here, we should be retesting 275. Just remember they report. There could be a little risk off coming for Microsoft if there is a big enough rally going into those earnings. I would anticipate there would be some sellers, and we should definitely be watching out for those imbalances on a day like today when 350 does hit. For now, just running the DWAC. I do have a backed short, BKKT. I saw someone put in the chat, what about that news? Remember they corrected the news to not a partnership with Apple and Google Play, but it was something along the lines of like a certain hotel was allowing you to pay with Apple and Google. So it halts up, capitulates back down, they clarify the news to not be as good, and then it's squeezed. So I got stopped out when I'm like, okay, well, it should just fall from here. It didn't. Stop out. Don't average in. Stop out. And then when it made the high at $5, this is what you wait for. Let it go parabolic. Forget about it breaking out here. I'm not touching that. Wait for a $5 break. It breaks 5 even, fails to break at 5 even, and then gives you a nice consolidation short beneath $5. I still have my stop, which I should be changing now. Now that we're barcoding at the original level that failed, I should be trailing this and saying if it breaks back above 450, forget it. We'll just lock in the move from 496, $5 into that 450 level. If it breaks down, I think it should head all the way back into 4 to 420. But time to put a trail in for backed.
Yeah, as backed, as Neil is working with backed, I'm looking at DWAC. The issue is I believe you have to pay for shorts on DWAC. So I'm not going to look for shorts on DWAC, but I am going to watch out for potential opportunities in setups, right? How is it setting up, and can we work with something on the daily here? Let's pull up the daily on DWAC. We talked about this a little bit earlier about how this level, this 36 level, if we had a chance to now wide open to the downside, and then we get an open above this 36. Where do we open? We open right at 36.70. So again, although we cracked underneath yesterday through that 36 and 35, it seems like stops are moved out of the way now, and they actually want to attempt a bounce. Now, if this can hold, you have a chance here. It still needs to clear 52 to get going to the upside, but at least now it has a chance into the mid-40s. assuming, again, that we actually close strong. If we end up right back below 36, that bounce attempt has been failed, and we do have now space to the downside. So there's a lot of news. You get Twitter moving. On a day like today, you got Twitter moving. Tesla, as in the periphery, odds are probably some capital raising there. That's my guess. That's not official. I'm sure we'll find out in the next little bit what actually happened today. But Tesla moving down. Twitter first, taking a step back here a little bit, and then DWAC coming to the front here a little bit and picking up the slack. So here goes DWAC to the upside. What happens when everything kind of recalibrates and this market gets back in sync with what this deal is supposed to be and how it's expected to close, and unforeseen circumstances aside, that by the end of the year this will be a private company. So how will DWAC fare? And what are the future? What is the future of if Twitter were to come up and open up with no guardrails or no stops or no conditions whatsoever and just leave it free speech, just wide open, where is DWAC's place in this arena when it comes to companies, right? That's a question that needs to be answered, I think, from DWAC's perspective and from Twitter's perspective. And it'll all happen once we actually get Elon Musk, or once Elon Musk actually gets his hand on the ability to actually make changes whenever I guess he takes possession, I guess would be the word.
Yeah, so just very quickly, there's a couple of other ones out here, and I'm kind of with you on this whole what could happen with DWAC, and ultimately it being not good news if Elon makes a change that I think a lot of people believe he's capable of, what that would actually mean for digital world acquisition. And there's a lot of other issues that stock does have. I did want to point out, EVOK just made another leg to the downside, and some of these things we're managing from the morning. This is basically like back with a slight difference. On EVOK, I did pull a reload when it got to view upper several at the $1 to 110 range. So it went from shorting off of 140 and 140 alone on the daily chart to let's short this thing and scalp it off of 101, 105, and then 110, back into that 90 to 95. It's now in the midst of possibly breaking that 90 level. Finally, if it does get through this price, who knows? Like, it could actually drop into the 75 to 80 range. And that's what I'm holding out for. I don't really have bids on it right now. I still have a stop, which I should be putting to a trail around $1. Like, I shouldn't be still giving it to 110. I'll trail it to $1. But at this point, if it breaks 90, I'm looking for the 80s on BKKT to be sure. So watch out for that one. This HYMC, just without a chance to even pay for the shorts and get it, it did just turn around at $1.65. I was kind of thinking it was going to maybe make a move higher. I don't know why I wasn't just willing to do what we did with DWAC with it and short it off $1.65. That definitely should have been the case. And okay, so I'm just going to say it anyways because, Dominic, thank you for the super chat. And I'll read it because you did post it this way. Dominic, totally paying just to say, Neil, the Jays have no leadoff or cleanup. It's a whole team of 7 or 8 hole hitters. It could be maybe like I love you, Dom, and we love all of our regulars and all of our viewers. That may be the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard said about the Toronto Blue Jays, because we have a certain dude named Vladdy hits third, he should hit fourth. We can talk about why that's absolutely nonsensical from a lineup construction standpoint. The math is pretty clear. But we have a leadoff hitter named George Springer. I don't know if you heard of him. He's getting paid a few shekels to be absolutely killer at the top of the lineup. He hits bombs. He has swag. He can run. He does it all. And Vladdy's an absolute beast. We got Tio, who's a monster. Bo Bichette. Where are your 7 or 8 hitters? We have a whole lineup of not 7 or 8 hitters. They're hitting home runs all day, and we'll mop the floor with your Milwaukee Brewers if they happen to make it to the World Series where the Jays are going. That's just how it is, Dom. And on top of that, if you're willing, let's just say on the off chance Milwaukee makes it to the playoffs, maybe they can do it. When the Jays do, we can have a little gentleman's side bet, and I have no problems. You can't wear makeup on live. But if Milwaukee goes in the playoffs farther than the Toronto Blue Jays, I will put a Brewers logo on both ends of my face and put it live for you. How about that, Dominic? Because it's not going to happen. Because the Brewers are okay, but the Jays are great. End of story. What's up, Brendan?
To interrupt this truth rant, but CYN, guys, huge move here. Just volume coming in as we speak as well. So 350 just got taken out there on a volume spike. That former runner going back a few days, CYN back in play here.
This is for Dominic. You bring it to me. This is for Dominic. Dominic, you heard what Neil said. I mean, that's just Call it case closed, man. I mean, like, this is what happens when Dominic's been making crazy calls and making all that money with VIX and all these other runners. He's got so much time to just pick at you, Neil, because he knows those J's.
He knew what I'd say.
Yeah, he knows where he's coming right for you with those J's. Now, if we only had such a deep Raptors fan here too, that'd be absolutely nuts, because I'm sure Dominic would go after that person as well. Can't come after me because I don't care. Straight up. I'll watch the sports, but hey, here and there, I'll watch the sports, but here and there, I don't care. But at the end of the day, this market is what I care about. That's where I make my money. And what is this market doing? It attempted to rally up. We got up into the high teens there. High teens didn't get anywhere. So we attempted right through here, through this 15, into that 20 area, market backing off here. I'm still looking at that 95 to the downside. And if we can get down to the 95 area, this could actually open up an extension. We got some buying out of the way, which makes me feel a little bit better with this short. But again, we need to continue extending to the downside, but it has to be done very, very slowly. The faster it goes, the more I hesitate. But for the time being, I am looking at that 95 break as a potential short option on the futures.
Yeah, and those are key levels. And look, you guys know it's all love, right? Like, we love Dominic. And I know Trader Pratt will, he'll go back and forth joking with them. We'll go back joking with them. And for a lot of the viewers that have been around a while, it's just a lot of fun to do. And everybody around here, like, if you're just tuning in for the first time, you'll know which buttons to push if you want to get me to make a rant. It's not that difficult. Like, you can talk about this thing, or you can say something bad about my Toronto Blue Jays, and then we're just going to have an issue. So. Or the Buffalo Bills. That's the other one. We haven't even talked NFL draft, and maybe we will at some point, but the market is moving. We just pulled back a little bit, and come on, chart. Now you want to do that to me when I want to pull up Microsoft. So, yeah, it's black charts for the win here, because when that happens, I'm just going to throw up the other one that is working for you. Yeah, big pullback we just had. And I was sort of just saying to you guys, and I'm not in the Microsoft long. I have a trailing stop on block. But I was sort of saying you might see some profit taking come in on a strong move to the upside, especially on a softie. So that pullback on the NASDAQ, which might have been 50 points or so, we just dropped $1. So it was a bit of an outsized move back in on Microsoft. And I think that has to do with some risk coming off, people taking profits and scalping these long trades. Like I said, it was good from 72 to 75. 72.5 doesn't even get there. It goes to $2 and fails. So inside of that range could be good. I might take a shot at this if we actually get back. If we can consolidate, like, I'm not going to sit in front of 72.50. I'd like to see it bounce, get long in front, like what has worked before, as opposed to jumping in front of a moving freight train, because that's what the longs have been if you've caught them to the downside. Allow it to consolidate, allow buyers to step in, and then take a shot, because then a bottom's been established, and all of a sudden now the chart's going to be working. A bottom's been established. That's what worked before. That's what I should have done when I was taking the square trade, and that's the only way I want a long this afternoon. Otherwise, I want to hunt for those good shorts, hold them to death, see what can happen with them. Speaking of that, DWAC, this is why we don't go for the home run trade. The buyers step in front of $40. Maybe it has one last push. It can't even get back to VWAP. That's how strong this thing is. And this is in the context of a falling market, that when this fails at an obvious level, it still manages to catch a bid and do so over and over again. And that's why I think taking profit, the conservative approach when going counter trend, is the way to go.
All right, as we get this late into the day, futures coming back a little bit. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can position in. If you don't have a position already, I've got the one I'm still trying to get out of on Marvell. It's not going to be a winner. It's a matter of how much am I going to lose. As little as possible would be nice. So what I'm trying to look at now is Microsoft, right? You can play earnings as they come out. That's one way of approaching it. I guess the YOLO approach that we talked about earlier. If it goes in one direction, you go for it and see if you can get a winner on that. I would rather figure out what I'm looking at on the daily here to see if I can actually make a move, regardless of where we go, upside or downside. I want to set up scenarios here so that I'm ready to react on them and not just, kind of reacting a little bit here. So I'm going to mark off some levels that I want to work with here. I'm thinking north of 300 is going to be one option here on Microsoft. It seems like there's a gap here from that 290 to 295. There's a little bit of action north of that as well. So round that up to 300. We call that even level as a potential option here for a breakout to the top end, right? That would clear some decent support and bounce right off this bottom. Now, if we were to break through the bottom, clearly 270 is going to be the next up level, because we're sitting at 273, $3 away from the low. We've already gotten to the March low, and the March low's been in play for a lot of names as the market actually comes back in. If we take out 270, can you open up the downside? And I'm going to say yes. Wow. Given that I have nothing going all the way back into July of last year, let's pull up the weekly to see, hey, can I work with Microsoft in the event that it goes down? And the answer is no, not until we get to 240. So there's a lot of space to the downside if Microsoft were to drop and earnings were not the greatest, guidance wasn't great. And that's, I think, the worst case scenario for this tech market is that we get breakdowns like this that are just waiting for a catalyst. And given where we're staying and where we have been finding buy-side action between 280 and 290, going all the way back to July, if we lose that, it could be a rough ride for Microsoft along with the NASDAQ. And then can we say the same thing with Apple? I'm just kind of running through scenarios. And Apple, double top around that 185. Remember when we were up here and it was like $3 trillion market cap? It was a specific price or something like that, and we got past it by 10 cents. And that was short-lived, and then here we are kind of getting back to the bottom. Apple has a lot more strength in it because of the support levels, and you can see this here. Microsoft a little bit thinner, but at least with Apple, you got this level, 140. As long as we can stay above 140, we have that ability to go down and still bounce back up. So keep an eye on this. Definitely sets them up. Google, I'm not even going to look at multi-$1,000 moves.
So I got to give, not to interrupt you, but what are your thoughts here? Because the NASDAQ and the ES, both hanging above these lows. Yeah. Well, Apple just broke the low. Shout out to the chat who's pointing out that Apple is testing and breaking these lows. Like you're getting outsized moves on this pullback on a few individual names. The Apple doesn't report. We're getting Alphabet and Microsoft, not Apple, but that was a pretty big move down. Does that change anything with how weak an Apple is relatively just minutes ago or seconds ago?
No, it just means that there's more space. Like, remember, this range is like 15 points wide, right? If we're already putting in lows, who's to say we can't go, instead of starting to slow down around 150, who's to say we don't slow down around 145, right? It just opens the door up. Apple has a lot more support on the larger chart, but at the same time, the range is wide. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a long now. It also doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a long. Remember, it has to set up. Microsoft is a little different because it's sitting right at the bottom edge. Like if we crack that and take it down with a sell side reason to sell, like earnings, it's going to be a rough ride for Microsoft, let alone what Apple can do. So wait for Apple when it comes out with its earnings, but at the same time, you got to understand, mark off the level. We can find support anywhere in here. Doesn't mean it's going to bounce, but we can find support. Although we're putting in brand new lows today, that's just an intraday trade, and we've still got, if I were to mark this down, I changed the chart. If we were to even mark off this chart here on the 30-minute chart, we've got another $3 to go before we even enter that large, wide range, that buy-side range, right? This yellow line or the orange horizontal zone here. So we've got space. This market wants to break.
Scary.
Yeah, we've got a ton of space, and doesn't even mean that we're going to start to slow down as soon as we get to it, right? So we've got a ton of space here on Apple, and then if you crack that 140, yeah, it's trouble.
Let's just not look at that chart. I'm going to lighten up for a quick second. I'll get to EVOK, which just plunged again, by the way. But Mr. David Kyle in the chat was like, "What about you heard of a Stan M?" And I'm like, "Well, who we talking? Stan Nikita? We talking South Park? We talking Stan the Man?" He said, "Stan the Man." I'll give you a story about me knowing baseball players. When I was a kid, my dad had this thing where we always go, like my brother, my dad, and I, we would go to the library every single weekend, and we'd take up books, and we would always be reading, and no matter what, like we get paid, like at one point he paid us 5 cents a page, but before that even happened, you just had to get like a pile of books, and we had to be constantly reading these books, and you had to be done by the end of the week. So I was a big baseball fan. In the Brampton library system, I read every single baseball autobiography that they had. I'm talking dudes you never even heard of. That I was like Greg Luzinski. It's like I could tell you stuff about the Bull. You're like, who the heck is that? And that was just my little bit of a trick to be like, yeah, see, I'm still gonna make it about sports, pops. You can't do anything about that. But yeah, I read Stan Musial's autobiography. Unbelievable legend. I'm not a St. Louis guy, and I've never been. I'd love to go. Legendary team, great fan base, and all that. And I don't hate on them. But if I had to pick, shout out to you, Dominic, if I had to pick between the Brewers and the Cards, I'm probably taking the Brewers because they got my boy Rowdy Tellez, and he's a former Blue Jay that we absolutely love. As all of this is now going, I will point out that on that pullback there on Square, yep, I just got trailed out on Square, so it'll be a winning trade, but unfortunately, we'll do like that little muted flaw stance because there was no push through. I thought we'd get to 103.5, maybe 104. We trailed it out at 101.50. I said I would talk about EVOK. Remember when it broke that 90, like that shelf at 90? It just got to 85 and caught a bid. So I took some out at 85. I still going to get more out at 80 even. And if it can, like if this continues that flush, you could see like 70 to 75 here. It wouldn't be crazy. The stock doing 200 million shares and dying. But the real story is the market now 2.25 on the ES, now well over 3% and retesting the low of the day. Remember Microsoft? The context of how it's approaching this 270, 250 is a bit different. It has yet to get to the higher low. Apple broke the low of the day. The NASDAQ's getting close to the low of the day. The ES is sitting there. But Softy's still, it's at that 270, 250. It has a chance that we can let the market bounce off the low and then get Microsoft off of support, which is it's a more fun way to do it because you feel a little bit safer as opposed to catching that falling knife.
Catch that falling knife with the latex gloves, people. That's the kind of day we're having today for anyone who's been long, this guy right here. But for the most part, I mean, at least we made some money on Pepsi. J&J and Uber were flat. Marvell, I'm going to take a hit on. The big loser is going to be UPS. Oh, did we do frustrating stock of the day earlier today? We did not. But UPS, it was a rough ride. This was abusive from the get-go before the market even opened. Yeah, so there's your long. Hey, you know what? We got stability, 192. It looks good on the daily. You know what? What does the daily look like? It looks pretty good. I think 192 could be nice because we got a nice little buy-side move reversal yesterday. We can go long into the 192 area because we were trading above 195. This little cluster here, come back in. We should catch a bid. Looks good. And then UPS just does this. Like, yeah, you know what? 192 is cool. Here's $1. Maybe not. You know what? Here's 50 cents. Maybe not. And then nope, all the way down as it takes out 190, 199. We got out, and then it kind of did like a quick freeze, like everybody freeze. I'm like, okay. And at that point, I was like, you know what? Maybe this market's going to actually, this stock specifically was just a run on stops. I bounced, I got right back in because I thought it was run on stops. And I didn't want to get out. It took another leg on the hit. So UPS is just, they robbed my money. UPS delivered a package to me earlier today, so at least I'm getting my money's worth there. But they are robbing me blind here today in terms of trading this. Yeah, it was a rough ride on UPS all around.
That's the crazy thing. I cannot actually think of a time where we both had, like, you won't, even when if it's Sean and I or it's Arun and I or Brennan, it doesn't matter. If we both like the same thing initially in the morning, usually it's a good trade. Like when that was like UPS sucked today. And by the way, we broke the low. ES broke the low, 2.5 now. The NASDAQ broke the floor. Tesla, Microsoft is it just took the low of the day there as well. And that's the thing, like, you can't take that trade unless the futures bounce off the bottom. You just can't do it. I was looking to see the futures bounce off that low of the day. Instead, this is what we're seeing. We're taking out the bottom. We're through that 3110. I can zoom in so you can see it a little bit more clean there. But yeah, we're through that bottom. You had to see it bounce if you wanted the long trade. At this point, hold on to your shorts if you got them. If you don't have them, find them by shorting some pops if there's any to be had out there. I'm sitting in 3, but the only one I can expect to do too much more because it's not a small cap is maybe DWAC wants to roll over completely for me. At this point, maybe I should be shooting for VWAP and forget about 39.50. If the market wants to truly make this a really big downside day, usually you'll drag just about everything with it and watch out for these imbalances in 30 minutes.
Imbalances in 30 minutes, Microsoft and Google earnings after market. This market on brand new lows. Tech absolutely getting wrecked at 3.3%. For anyone who, I see a bunch of guys asking what's happening. Market's heading down in a big way here.
Market's scurred.
It's having a rough time with what's about to come with earnings. There might be some fear here overall with, just what their expectations are. And then you can add, to be fair, you can add a ton of different reasons. If you want to add overseas news, political or geopolitical news, sure. You want to add inflation talk, sure. I believe that's not this week, next week, right? May 3rd, right? Is there something with the Fed on May 3rd? I got to double check that. I believe there's something with the Fed on the May 3rd. But anyways, you want to talk about Fed? Sure, you can add that as a potential news catalyst. But today is just mostly tech getting absolutely run over to the downside. It's outpacing the S&P by a full percent here. S&P down only 2.5, and then NASDAQ down 3.46. So led by Tesla to the downside 11%, and then Amazon down 4%. Amazon coming out with earnings soon. Microsoft coming out with earnings soon. Apple coming out with earnings soon. And then we got NVIDIA, actually Facebook holding up well on the day, only down 2.6%. So in line a little bit with the S&P, but still stronger than the overall tech market. But as I say, this future is heading to the downside in a big way here. We didn't just break the lows. We snapped right through them by 10 points or so to the downside. So this is a kind of move you guys get when stops go off. If you were to pair this, how can I tell? Let's put some volume on the table here. Let's get a small volume chart going. And once this loads up, once you get past a certain point, you know stops are going off. Everyone's been looking at that 94 level. It's been in play since yesterday. It's been in play pretty much earlier today. And then once we cracked underneath, we were already down at 92. And then 2 more sells, another 10,000 contracts takes us south of 90. So that's the kind of acceleration you're getting underneath that 95. What I would watch out for is what happens in the event that we snap back up. I want to see what we've got, if we even got the juice to do this, is if we get back to the mid-90s, what are we going to do? Are we going to continue just running up, or are we going to actually slow down? If we slow down, there could be a short. If not, this market could be in trouble there. Brendan.
To confirm, Arun, you were correct. The 3rd and the 4th. So we'll get the actual announcement on the 4th from the Federal Reserve, but that is coming up next week, yes. Boeing, I wanted to mention Boeing. There was a note on Boeing with Spirit on the 737 Dreamliner, I want to say. On the maintenance side of things, they just updated how things are going as far as some of the maintenance on some of those planes that were affected with the issue. Boeing, though, 5% to the downside today. Also getting absolutely clocked right here with the overall market.
And like Alan Woods asked about an AEL a second ago, so I got you here, and it's also down 5%. Like the airlines had that fantastic run, and they broke up and got the resistance. I think anybody would have probably said, when you get runs like this, it's just gone on. It almost doubled from the March low. It didn't quite, but it almost doubled up there. Those are like take profit points. How this looks on the daily, however, the way that it's rejected and now followed through, just sort of feels like, if we don't hold 1850, you should expect 1650 to the 50 period on something like an American. And that's the kind of thing that can happen. It's just when we have higher volatility, you got to expect bigger moves, and that comes with the pullbacks as well. A lot of names are moving like this. I saw people asking about a firm. I'm just in the 3 shorts that I'm working. I don't really have a great trade on. Like, I'm staring at Microsoft on the off chance that we can reclaim the lows, and then we can still like the long around the 72 to 72.5 level. Otherwise, looking for some shorts to pop. But Firm was just asked about, down 7%, although in the context of its move, it doesn't look like it's done anything. I know 7% is a lot. In the context of where this has come from, it doesn't feel like it's made a gigantic move. However, look at what's happening at this $31 price here today. So fell with the rest of the market, broke 30 several times, all failed breaks. As the market retests the low just now, it bounces off 30. So I was just talking about Microsoft holding a higher low as the market took the bottom. It ended up not doing that, but Affirm, oddly enough, did. So it held the higher low while the market took out the bottoms and is maybe churning here. If we get an update, tomorrow, we probably don't get a shot at this at 31, but you never really know. It's a kind of level that when you see this hold, you're looking for a jailbreak on a squeezable type of stock on a positive day that gives you an obvious move. Like, that's your YOLO, 31 to 33. If these guys blow away the earnings and save the market, you probably don't get a shot at 31, but you never know. You just got to be prepared to look at it. It's showing some signs of relative strength in a firm. Not enough for me to prefer the long over, say, softy, but there are crazier things here. If you put a day trade on in front of that 30 level, it's already turned after a couple of failed breakdowns.
All right. Somebody asking me about Marvell. There's not a whole lot to say about Marvell. It's my long position from this morning. I'm just holding on to it because it hasn't hit my stop and it hasn't come up to get me out yet. So it's just one of those positions where you're stuck. You're like, it's too close to the stop level to get out. At the same time, like I've done with other names where, it's not going to work out. I can't really move out of the way either because it's too close to the stop level. So I can't do damage control on Marvell. I'm priced in here, all the way up here in the pre-market, and we blew through a bunch of support levels on the way down. But we haven't taken out the actual key level, which is going to be 58. So at this point, given that we're trading at 58.23, why should I get out? Maybe I get lucky with a buy side imbalance or something. So I don't have a reason to. It doesn't make sense to take the hit now. versus just giving an extra 25 cents or so. So that's kind of my reasoning on Marvell. The read was a daily read, but it did not work out clearly as market actually took a beating here because, based on the 2-day move that we got below the lows of March, it looked like it had a chance to go up. It did not do that, so here we are just holding on to that loser. We'll dump it after the 350 imbalance. That comes out at 350, like I said. NASDAQ New York and TSX, Canada TSX would be, or TSX markets would be providing their imbalances now at 350. Essentially, I guess, since I'm on the topic, we'll go over it. This is what it looks like. This just lets us know how much needs to be bought and sold on an individual name at the official closing price, right? So if anyone's sending in order tags with an on-close order tag or on market on close, limit on close, whatever, then you get to participate in the official closing price, and all those orders, they're grouped together. We get to see how large that interest is at 350. Everyone, New York, NASDAQ, Canada, TSX, they all disseminate their data at 350, and then at 355, you get an update from the floor regarding what their interest is from the floor. So at 350, you get an update, and at 355, you get an update, and then you run with that volume until 4 o'clock. If it's large enough, and it's got to be big, hey, Tesla's done 40 million shares on the day. Can we get a large Tesla imbalance as well? That'll have an influence on Tesla. Twitter, similar situation. DWAC, similar situation. If these imbalances for these markets or these individual names get large enough, then you're going to have some program pressure right till the end of the day, and that's why this even matters, right? We want to see where that pressure is going to come from, because at the end of the day, what these market makers or these specialists are trying to do is reduce the variance from the last trading price versus the official closing price. But if the imbalance is too large, then they have no choice except do what they need to do, still minimize the change, but they've got to execute the trade, which kind of captures all the volume that needs to be done. So that's what we're looking at for towards the end of the day. We'll see that information on 350, and then we'll go from there.
There you go. Great explanation. Well, it's always great when you come on and do that, because we talk about this every single day. And
yeah.
It's always good to get the explanation in there, because I bungle through it when I try to explain it, the imbalance locator. I do want to jump to CYN here, because it did make that move up to 370. I'm not paying. I could consider paying for shorts if it gets back up here, but if you pull up, pull up the higher time frame, I just put in the chat there that it did come close to failing at the January resistance, which is like 380 up here. Not quite. It got to 370, but if it breaks the high at 370, forget about the current high of the day. It's that 80 level that's going to matter a little bit more. Like if it tries to get through that and is successful, it's got room to get into a $4.50 to $5 cluster, and it's been a strong runner. This name, and it hasn't been all parabolic, right? Like it's done some good consolidating. Like remember, like Veru, it's like it breaks out, pulls back, and then it holds these consolidation levels, breaks out, pulls back, holds consolidation, breaks out, pulls back, holds consolidation. Like that's like there's not like this is the biggest, I would say, like strength in the afternoon that it's actually shown on any of these moves so far here today. So maybe sometimes that does give you a bit of a pullback, but it's shown strength on every single one of these. So you got to be careful if you're looking for a short trade, especially off that 70. Yeah, it's working right now, but it could break this and still have the 80 level to contend with. That's why the breakout would be tricky if you had 370. I wouldn't be taking a 70 break on the high of the day. That goes without saying for my style, but it's tricky because 80 is a level on the higher time frame. So be very, very careful with that one, guys. HYMC is making a bit of a move. The futures, while not reclaiming that 13.1 on the NASDAQ, it is worth noting, at least if we can get back up there, that Microsoft, and I'm back to my 15-minute chart here, but Microsoft is trying to hold the low of the day. It's close enough to it that if the futures were to reclaim that 13.1 and there was some kind of a pushback up, that you'd probably be getting that at the 270, 250. Like it would have to get back to that level before you think it's going upside. And those lows from the morning yesterday could come into play at 270 on Microsoft. It's just an eerie feeling being down 3% going into these earnings prints, where I think everybody's pretty much expecting that they're going to make a boatload of money like they always do, and that's what we're going to see, and they're likely going to beat. And it just doesn't matter. And you showed it was already ugly on UPS this morning. I had AMD for a dip buy today, and this is a very similar story to Tesla. It's how it comes in. Like I love these levels for the dip buy yesterday, and we talked about this and was a winning trade off of these levels. However, how it gets there matters. 91.50, rejection at the top. Rejection at the top. Gets there, doesn't have time to go through. And then at the open and at the pre-market, we try to get through that top and we roll over. That is the pop and fade. It's a go-to short style trade. And instead, I'm just going right back to the dip buy. And there's that market breaking the lows. This is AMD taking out 85.50, heading the way to $85 on AMD. Like, that's what we're seeing. And again, it's a shelf break. Like, you're breaking a shelf, and I don't have the short on. And the shorts, I'm happy with what we have, but yeah, you have to go all the way back, and whoops, that's too far. You have to go all the way back, to like mid-2021, and that's where we're going to be at in AMD if we get to this $84 level. Like, it's already a serious enough pullback in front of what's going to be these big earnings that are coming through. And like you said, next week with the Fed, I mean, it got thrown out there. I forget which member it was last week about, the potential for 75 basis points. It's not zero.
Yeah.
It's like, are you kidding me? Could you even imagine if we got a surprise? I don't even want to think about that.
Markets don't like surprises, to say the least. So it needs to be projected in there. So I don't know what the interest rate tool stands at right now, but I believe everyone's leaning towards a half-point hike. 93%, I think, last time we talked about it.
Should be higher now.
Should be higher now, but half point is where we're kind of sitting around in terms of projections and expectations. So look forward to that, I guess. But you know what? One thing we definitely have to look at on because it's in the chat. Somebody was asking, is like, do you think that these earnings, Apple and Microsoft, these earnings are going to matter or not? Oh, they're going to matter. The reason why, because remember, these indexes, all these, when people say the S&P is down this much or NASDAQ is down this much, they're built on companies, right? You put a basket of companies together, and that's how you build an index. And we're trading the futures, so we're trading the futures, and that moves because of individual names inside the index are moving. And Microsoft is the number 2 weight in that index. In the NASDAQ 100, Microsoft sits at like 10-point-something%, only behind Apple, which sits at like 12%. So 2 companies, Apple and Microsoft, control north of 1/5 of the NASDAQ 100, which actually includes 100 companies. So only 2 of them control north of 20%. So you could say that definitely matters. And then you have Google there. Keep in mind, Google has 2 classification of shares. Or Alphabet actually has 2 classification of shares, each of them having a decent weight. You put them together, they're going to be number 3 in the list in terms of weighting, I believe. So they have influence, not as much as Apple does, but they definitely, coming together, they definitely have influence. As long as they don't come out in the same direction, which is negative, this market will act a little confused. But if they come out negative, both of them come out negative, you're going to see a quick move. We're right now trading at 41.85. I would say we could easily lose 40 to 50 points by the time this actually goes to close, by the time Globex hours closes, if both of them come out in the same direction with negative movement, right? So it could be a rough go of it on the S&P side, especially if we accelerate with terrible results. But again, 2 different companies. Are they going to have similar results? That's going to be the question. But Tesla had great results, and the following day just sold off because the market had no appetite for that long up there. So here we are kind of waiting for that to happen. The market is falling off. I noticed it 41.82, still accelerating to the sell side as this market decides, you know what, we're not going to rally. We're not going to do a relief rally whatsoever. We're just going to continue moving down. Here's your 5 points. That's your relief rally on the day like today. That's all you're going to get. South of 41.95, we went all the way down to 41.80 and change, 81.85? Yeah, 85 and change. Bounce back up to 92, and that's it. Now we're heading south again as we look at 41.80. NASDAQ, only 50 points away from that 13,000 mark. So, hey, keep an eye on this one. Let's pull up the NASDAQ futures contract. Yeah.
Oh, just very quickly here, guys. Bitcoin got mentioned, so I want to throw it up here in the context of Coinbase's all-time low, which is being hit right now. It got to 127.25 pre-market a while back or a few days ago, and it's at that low, all-time low for Coinbase, while we're at 3,800 on Bitcoin. So if you're into these sort of things, probably not a good thing for Coinbase if we break 38 at the same time as we're taking out these recent lows, getting absolutely destroyed. So it's worth pointing out the level of it's everything's coming to the downside here, but Coinbase as well. DWAC's about to give me the fill here, and there weren't too many trades put on in the afternoon. I was looking for that softy. I had the square one, but that was sort of before we came on, and we showed you and we showed you Nutx, but DWAX right down at that 329 level. I was just on the bid, and I'm going to instead get a little bit more aggressive. Nope. I might just have to cross in and take that. Yeah, there was just a 39.40 level. I'm just going to take it out manually in here, cross the spread a little bit as we're getting into VWAP on my 15-minute chart. But DWAC that 42, that was a had-to-have trade. I said I should have had it the first time. When it goes up there, I'll make the top wick if it breaks out. But that was a must short off the 15-minute. Brendo?
Not necessarily a trade, but interesting note, guys. Another one reporting tonight. Aftermarket going to be QuantumScape, QS. Set to report earnings. Remember going back a month ago or so, that was all-time lows for QS. So we are right back down to where this thing was going back a month ago. 8% today for that one.
So yeah, Bitcoin just broke that 38,000 as well. So I mean, QuantumScape, that's another one down 8%, and another expect volatility. When these it's already moving 8% and showing you that when the daily chart looks like this. You better believe it's on your radar to trade. Win or lose, you've got to be able to trade what's moving. We'll hit a key because we can be happy about the DWAC trade that we just got out of. Feels like that's like way slower than normal.
That is very slow.
It's like a slow motion fireworks, which had no sound to go with it either, but that can't be, it is what it is. I don't know if it's supposed to have sound. Coinbase on that break on Bitcoin didn't really make the break itself through that bottom, but it's so far down at this point. Like, for it to continue with a lot of velocity is a bit tricky, especially going into these imbalances. I'm unlikely to take anything else out. We do have to be flat at the end of the day, so as nice as it would be to see 80 cents on EVOK, it hasn't happened yet. I'm like more aggressively. I'm going to be all out if it gets to 80, as opposed to trying to hold it for 70 to 75, which I didn't think could happen, but ultimately it's slowed down a bit. It's way more. This looks way better if I zoom in. It's like, look how good that trade looks if I zoom it in a little bit, but in truth, this was one where it was a sort of a tale of two trades. When it spiked up to the key level on the daily chart, that was more just a rejection of the high, as opposed to catching the bid off of 90 and then shorting that dollar area over and over again in VWAP and catching the reloads. That turned into more of a scalp trade. Now we're just sort of hanging on for dear life. But Softy can't hold up. I wanted there to be a bounce trade for this, but there just isn't. There's no trade to be had. The futures didn't hold up. If anything, I should have just gritted my teeth and shorted the thing, but I just couldn't find my way into doing it. Brendo.
Talking about this a little earlier, the CME Fed funds rate tool, 98.7. It's a little hard to see there, but 98.7 now for that.
You figured it had to be.
Yeah, but think about it this way. If they don't do a half point and they do a quarter point instead, like, how much is this market going to rally at that point? Because they're pricing in a half, right? So it's going to be quite the move if you don't even do the half at this point. But highly unlikely that the Fed will give the market what it wants, and the market wants a half point. Odds are we're going to price in and we're going to move with a half point.
And here's what I will say. And shout out to our good friend and guest, Mr. O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful himself, when he came on today and said, "We are at full employment. It matters. It matters." We ain't getting no quarter. This is the thing. Like, when you're at full employment, they get full bore to do what they need to do to control inflation, and that means we're getting the half. And I would be surprised, and trust me, the market's going to love it, and we're going to have, that's one of those days where you just close your eyes and punch the long key and take your shot, shoot your shot if we get a quarter point, because even by the dip, by the top, be willing to kind of get into it. But I just don't see any way, again, with full employment, that they wouldn't just double barrel it like they're anticipating doing here, because they got to get out in front of this thing. And when they believe the economy is at full employment and strong, then they're going to make that move and damn the market. And that's supposed to be what the mandate is, and we got to be able to live with that. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, that's getting close to that 100% mark as you would expect. Worth noting here, now Tesla's down 11%, so grain of salt. Holding the low of the day despite the market taking the low of the day on Tesla. So it might have been enough damage for this thing. And that just leads right back into your theory about what happened this morning in Tesla, that if it's not further capitulating off the lows, that you really just did have someone dumping it en masse and all that volume. And then it was very balanced once it got to the 900 level, and still is very balanced trade down here. It's not showing overwhelming weakness. It's not showing overwhelming strength. It's just settling in down here in the high 90s below 900, Brendo.
My chart is not showing this for some reason, but SPTN, Spartan Ash, just halted. Oh, there we go. Just halted on some buyout rumors, guys. So a big move here for SPTN.
SPTN. Brendan always coming out with the hot movers. It's just like Jump on it. Well, it's halted. Okay, never mind. Don't jump on it right now. But it is right there. 37.21 is the closing price. 37.27 is the opening price. 2,000 shares. Done 350K on the day. So be very, very careful in terms of volume because it is rather thin as it moves through. It was just, it wasn't doing a whole lot. And then right now we're looking for a 3,000 print with about 6 cents above where it closed. So yeah, it's a mover, but be very careful about volume. Always check the volume on some of these names because they're going to pop off and go halting. And then you look at the actual volume, you're like, oh, I can't get in and out of shares on that kind of volume. So be very, very smart about how you trade these low volume names. Brendan.
So it looks like this one, United Natural Foods, which is UNFI, is involved or potentially involved in this deal, or potential deal anyways, along with Oak Street Real Estate Capital exploring bids for that SPTN.
There you go. And like deals can be had. And when the market gets depressed, sometimes that's you get that discount. And shout out to it was Yilin Day, I think. Apologies if I'm getting the name wrong. Yeah, ATR is running again. It did it yesterday, and we didn't take a breakout in ATR yesterday at 3:30. And when it made that big run. But check out the 575 levels, trying to make another run at the high. Well, it's more like 578, but yeah, making a run at the high of the day. Nutx is halted to the downside, by the way. So, yep, I guess that was a hold and it was a home run. So, whatever. You got to stick to your plan. It did eventually go to that $8 that we were talking about, but I missed it. Miss V?
Hey guys, only 20 minutes left until the end of this rad trading day. And please make sure you like this video. We're still below 700 likes even, while 3,300 people watching us. Like of each of you is important to us. Back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Miss V. And I'm kind of curious, like the other thing I'm curious about too, like obviously we already talked about Miss V and the Tesla trade. It will be how to approach that stock tomorrow. Because I'll tell you, like after we get Microsoft and Alphabet, and given the volatility that we're expecting, there's a pretty much 0% chance that Tesla moves as much as it did today. It's just not going to happen. So how to trade that is going to be a tricky one there. And by the way, I didn't say this when Nutx halted. It's halted down at halted at 8.11. The indicated open price is $8. So like 8 even, it looks like it's going to open up. And it should open. This is not late enough in the day that it won't open back up before 4 o'clock. This should open back up in a couple of minutes or so. I mean, I don't really see a trade. Maybe there's a YOLO if it bounces off $7 and it opens down there. But not a trade that I would put on this late in the day. I'm not happy with the way that I traded it. The last trade ended up being good, but it doesn't mean that it was traded all that well. It was probably a couple too many shorts. And then not really holding on at the top. I don't mind that too much. But yeah, I missed the boat on the chance for the long trade because that was pretty bullish in here. And I'm not going to say the name of the trader on the floor, but one of our more experienced traders on the floor actually had a long. And I'm like, oh man, I wish I had been talking to him about the stock and sort of like just getting an outside perspective on why. Like after a couple of halts, it's then going to break out from a level like $7, stabilize, and then make that kind of a floor. The risk to reward, you know what, I'm going to ramble about this a little bit longer because a lot of times they'll short a parabolic mover because the risk to reward makes more sense in the short. When it gets down here at that 7 even and is consolidating, your risk to reward is better on the long because you can stop it at the original halt price up at about 670, maybe 675, and then you're essentially long at 7 and change with a 675 or 650 stop, a high of the day at 8, 1-to-1, and if it breaks it, it could go gonzo because it's got a small float. Your upside is $9, $10 or what it did there. That favors a long trade, if anything else, because you have the tighter stop. Yeah, sure, you can short it off the high of the day, but that's a pretty appealing long side trade that I didn't make out there. But it's worth going over these things. I would have said that to myself on the train after I did my Wordle and Quirtle and all that other nonsense, and I'm thinking about my trades. I would have been talking to myself about why I could have done it. However, when you go over it with another trader, maybe they would have seen it in real time, something that you're missing out on. That's why we talk about trades amongst each other, amongst ourselves. You'll hear Pratt ask questions. I'll ask Arun questions. Sean and I will chat sometimes when we're going to Brennan or when we're just having a bit of a pause because you want to make sure you're getting another look It's not always obvious, these things. You can have all the experience in the world, but you can still learn new things. Nutx just opened up. It looked at, right here, right at $8. Not a ton of movement. I don't really see a great trading opportunity here unless it were to try to reclaim $10. I think that would be a bit of a fade, but with only 7 minutes to go for the imbalances, doubt I will be getting into this one that late.
Nathan Wilder, he says, thanks, Neil and Rune. He's a new member, and this was my best day of 2022. I traded AMD and UPS. Clearly, you went in the opposite direction that we did, because good job, because we got run over on UPS, both of us. So good job on Nathan on actually making money there, because we could not on UPS. Market attempting to bounce off these 80s. It's starting to find some stability. You know, it's trying, but we're getting so late into the session. At this point, given how late we are, and there's probably no equity positions that I'm going to step into anymore. I just got to worry about the future side of things, right? And we're finding some bids here around the 80s, so there could be a decent long bounce right at the end of the day. Not right at the end of the day, but at least going into the final little bit. Keep in mind, earnings, I believe Pratt put out 405 is going to be Google earnings. 405, we've got to double check that, but 405 should roughly be, it fits with when Google tends to release their earnings anyways. So it's going to be just after the open, or just after the close there. And that'll be the first one to go, because Microsoft apparently is at 415, so that's towards the end there. But again, keep an eye on these names. Keep an eye on, if you want to play afterwards, play the NASDAQ. The S&P probably isn't going to move as much, but you know, it'll still move. It's not going to be like the type of movement NASDAQ's going to bring you on a move like that in the event that these numbers actually come down a little bit rougher. We're talking about the earnings for Microsoft and for Google on the at 4 o'clock, 4:05, whatever. So here we are waiting for these imbalances to come out. We got that in 5 minutes. So understand the headline risk is at this point is going to be earnings, right? For these names, for these markets, is all about Microsoft and Google at this point. We're going to wait to see what these imbalances are going to come out at. I've got Marvell, as you can see. I've had it from this morning. It was a good read on the daily. Clearly not, it didn't work out because the market got absolutely roasted today. So we are down $1.84 on the shares there earlier, and you know, I'm still in this position because we're still inside of a support level. With the stop level never got taken out. I had no reason to get out, even with the market being as down as it is. Marvell never broke that support point that I was trying to use as like the exit point, right? So I'm just like holding on at this point. I want to see what these imbalances bring. If it's a positive imbalance, I might just go into I might hold this. I actually will hold this. If we get a positive imbalance on Marvell, I'll hold this and see if we can actually get as high as possible and then get it out on the closing print. If it's a negative one, we'll just dump it fairly quick because we're probably not going to get any help whatsoever off these imbalances.
And I'm going to do one of these because I don't really, whatever. I'm going to hit like the winner chicken dinner. And it's really more about like what ended up happening with you guys. Remember I said like sometimes you just can't go for the home run, and like with Nutx, you saw it fall another $2. So obviously, like that ends up being wrong, but you don't sweat it because if the read says it's bullish enough that it could catch a bid at a price, you just take the trade as you mean to do it. And when it's a parabolic like this, getting out when you get a spike down, and actually ended up crossing out of it because it was a bit of a buyer that showed up in front of that 39. When it's that bullish, you just get out of it. And the reason why, and I might have said this in the chat, maybe I did, maybe didn't. And if I'm repeating myself, I apologize. It happens sometimes. This was a bullish break on DWAC, right? Capitulation bottom on high volume at 33, higher low put in 36. The short, like the failure at the high of the day in the morning, setting up for that nice reversal trade that could never take out the support. It just could not break 36 to get back down to that bottom. And then it consolidated all day long. It gave you that late day. We talk about this on parabolic movers when they gap up, that if it tries that pop and fade trade and can end up holding morning support the entire day, watch out for a 132, 230 breakout on a stock like that. And look what and then it did that breakout. So to expect that to come all the way back here, I don't know that it's going to happen. You've already relieved a lot of pressure. Like a lot of this selling that took it down to past 35, 36 in the first place on all that volume, like that's exhausted it to a certain extent. So it's already done that on the 15. You look at the 15, like it's ugly. Like it's already made that capitulation bottom. You can't expect it's going to come back here when it's showing that strength. It's okay to short it, but you can't really always think it's coming all the way back to the low of the day. No matter what you think of the stock, you got to play the setup. The setup is what matters. I'm going to be looking specifically at Twitter Twitter, Microsoft, well, Microsoft obviously because of earnings, Twitter, Microsoft, and Tesla as we get into imbalances coming in 90 seconds or so. Tesla is still holding the low of the day, although as the futures test the bottom, Tesla now retesting some of these lows. 885 it's currently sitting at. It's SSR, but you never know what can happen. We don't often see Tesla on the imbalance locator at 350, but this could be one of those days. Brendo?
Not the first time today we'll talk about this one, but Cassava Sciences just popping up on volume once again. This made a move just before the open, in fact, back to the upside. So just seeing some volume on Sava, guys.
Oh, yeah, and I just got out of EVOC and I threw it in the chat and I wasn't going to, you have to get out at the end of the day anyways, but there was a buyer for now 150,000 shares. This bounced off 80 at 89, so there's no need to be in that trade anymore. So we're just ring the register and get out of that one. It was a solid trade, but it never really got through that 80 level to take those 75s anyways, but big time buyer there. And you got to take profit at some point, but yeah, Cassava Sciences, that was one from this morning, and bounce is about to come out. It would get more interesting if we were trading earlier in the session and we're making this same move, because this would be a level to try a fade at 22.50 for a scalp. It's just not the time of day to put that trade on.
Yeah, as we get into right into these imbalances, I mean, let's wait it out. I mean, we've got 15 seconds before these imbalances come out. Let's get the futures up here. What do we got here? 82s right now. Someone said in the chat it's a 200 million buy on a huge down day like this. Okay, that's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But I will keep an eye on this one here. Here we go. Imbalances are going to be mixed.
Forward to sell.
Mixed, I guess. It is looking like, yeah, I don't know. As the market's rallying to the upside here, I guess we've got a rally going on here as this market decides, you know what? We don't care about these imbalances being to the sell side. So for now, it is, oh, there we go, as it breaks 80 finally. And no, it is just hanging around. Zynga on the buy side here, 5.5 million shares. IBN on the buy side here at 2.2 million. You know, Ford is there, VTRS is there. A lot more than you would typically expect in a market like this, right? This is what happens when you get a large event like a market sell-off, like a 3.5%, 3.5% sell-off. But Zynga's there as well, potentially. Zynga's one to watch. Zynga's got some juice to it, too. So here we go. Let's take a quick look at Zynga. Why do we care? Because Zynga has actually got a large imbalance here. It's done 5 million shares. It's got 23 million done on the day. What can you do now is going to be the question, because that's a big chunk. That's almost 25%, 20% of the day's volume here on Zynga. So they've paired 167,000, but now we're working it. We'll keep an eye on this one here. Odds are it probably gets smaller after 355, because remember, at 355, we get the interest from the floor, right? And this market will react to that 355 update. So we'll see how that one goes. But for the time being, it does look like the market drifted to the upside. Drifted, I say, because we backed off those 90s once again. So we'll see how this market responds as we get closer and closer to these imbalances, or the 355 update. But for the time being, it does look like somewhat positive. So whoever said the 200 million, yeah, it does look like it was a buy-side imbalance of some sort that this market decided to go up with.
Yeah, and I mean, like when you had Zynga and a couple other names on there, like maybe just enough to get it positive. I just got out of backed because it wasn't doing anything. I just got to fill at 44 because you want to be flat. As a day trader, got to be flat at the end of the day. Tesla was 240,000 shares to sell, which that's not small for a $900 stock, or well, I guess $885 stock. So it's enough of a sell imbalance. It is a slight move to the downside here. Ford had an imbalance as well. I hit enter too fast, but it didn't really move. It was, well, yeah, 1.8 million to sell. It didn't really do anything. Ford down 3% on the F-150 news. That was another one that just couldn't get going. Thankfully, it never set up for the long that I wanted. Otherwise, that would have been another one of those to add to like the AMD and the UPS, which were just absolutely ugly. Yeah, like now it has to be overall to the sell side now, because like I'll pull up mine in a second, but it feels like there's now too many size sells on here, like Ford, CCL's 1.3 million, US Steel, Ocugen both over a million, Siri 1 million. Yeah, I mean, like say Spirit Airlines is 1 million shares to sell, Intel's 800 to sell, Apple's 750 to sell, NCLH is a buy. That's weird. Marvell is a 600,000 sell. So It doesn't feel.
Marvell. I was like, I'm not getting any help from these imbalances. I just dumped it.
Marvell?
I gave it
600,000 is kind of big for that.
Yeah, I gave it a chance, and it wasn't happening. So you know, that's why I got flat on Marvell. I gave it a real chance to get going to the upside. Imbalance comes out. If it's going to be a sell side move, we're going to walk away from this, right? It makes no sense. We're not going to get any help whatsoever from the final push at the end of the day. Tesla, I noticed that you were talking about Tesla there.
It just lows again.
Oh, they're attacking lows, and the market heads back to the downside here, flirting around all over the place here. Are we going down? Are we going up? We are waiting for that 355 update, which comes in about a minute or so. As we kind of work these bottoms here, we're still trying to find a reason to go up, but not getting the juice that we wanted here as this market now going back to the low 80s and still working like it wants to head lower here. I guess we're going to be selling into the close, guys, it seems like, because the way the market's moving, it ain't going to be pretty. At least as of right now. This could change a lot after 355, but as of right now, it ain't looking too pretty.
And it's just there was a question about how we see the imbalances. So first things first, it's built into the platform for us at Day Trade the World. Pro 8 has it embedded for us to have that. However, you should always ask your broker because, you know, it's in the market data feed. So if you're getting live market data, the New York and the NASDAQ, level 1, level 2, then it's in there. It's a question of whether your broker is entitling you to see it. Maybe you have to pay an extra fee. Maybe it's a hidden feature. I can't speak for another broker. It's built into our platform, but it is in the data feed. Like if you're getting market data, it's like if your broker is getting market data, then they're getting the imbalance feed in some way, but it's whether or not they're passing it on to you. So you should always ask your broker. Dominic, you're right. 880 came. Not shorting Tesla is going to be one of those things that. Like it doesn't matter whether you're up or down in a stock, and will be the trade of the day, and you can look at it. But it's all longs. Like I was long over and over again on Tesla with tight stops, and just never short. And now that you're breaking 880, when you pull up this daily chart on Tesla, we just got the 355, and you start looking at where we are. Forget about $800. You start thinking about 750, 760 if we continue this move, right? Like there's a lot of room. When we pulled back the last couple of times, we didn't stop at 10 or 11% on Tesla. It didn't happen. Like we continued down each time and went a little bit further than that. So maybe we get a chance at those, those numbers at around $800. I think that's going to be an opportunity to buy. It'll still be expensive at those prices, but hey, no one ever really called a bottom successfully. You have to be willing to sort of get in front of it.
Yeah, so we are, the market's just flirting with these 80s, not doing a whole lot. We're just going to wait it out at this point. One thing I do want to let you guys know, I'm sure you guys are going to be excited about this. I am unavailable tomorrow. So what does that mean? Your main man. Everyone's been asking for him, and he will be in tomorrow. Pepper Tony in the building with Neil tomorrow. Yeah, that's the name they came up with. Pepper Tony.
I thought it was Pepperoni Tony.
Maybe it's Pepperoni Tony now. But he will be in the building tomorrow. He'll be sitting right here. I'll be back on Thursday. But Neil and Tony tomorrow going to be putting in some work. So whatever you guys need to get done with Tony, just wait for tomorrow. Brendan.
Yeah, definitely be there or be here for that. Just watching Twitter, guys. Wow. Amazing sell-off on Twitter. The volume is just insane. Let's get you caught up on what's to come. Monster earnings the next couple of days. Here is what's on the docket for tonight.
This will be it'll be one of those mornings where as we're going over everything, and have to do a good job, make sure we catch everything because everyone's going to be focused on Microsoft and Alphabet. And certainly probably Boeing a little bit in GM, and that's great. And those will be important to the market. But don't sleep on Texas Instruments and what if they have a bad print, what that might mean for an already weak semiconductor space. And on top of that, Harley-Davidson is usually really good trading around earnings. It's the only time I look at it, but Hog is usually worth a look post earnings, and it's a busy board. This is why you want to be tuning in at 8:30 to make sure, like, we have a plan of action for just about everything. Like whether or not you take a trade on it, you want to go over the levels. Twitter at 49.50. This is one of those. Going to definitely be thinking about this the next couple of days because if we close below $50. That at some point it's going to be worth having something in this thing for the rest of the year, just as a somewhat defensive play. But I have to get a handle on what possible risks there could be for blocking the deal. Because it can't go antitrust. It would have to be that national security thing that you said. As ridiculous as I think that sounds, maybe that's more real than we think. Tesla now down 12%, headed to 875 with just 2 minutes to go. This is a wild one, Arun.
Wild one, it's not over yet, because you know what? Even after the market closes, the story only begins because of Google and Microsoft. Right, so come in tomorrow, buckle up. Whatever you need to dust off, whatever you need to wash, get it all done, because tomorrow is going to be another day, another hectic day. We're going into the end of the month. We've got a ton of earnings coming out. We got Fed next week. We've got big dog earnings tonight. We've got tomorrow. We've got the following day. We got Thursday. And then, we're going right into the end of the month. I think that's a big thing, too. So here we are in the final 90 seconds. Things are going to get exciting real quick in this market. Hey, listen, when the market speeds up, you got to speed up, catch up, keep up, or get left behind in this kind of activity, right? So if you want to make some money, hey, it's time to catch up. And this market of volatility is going to provide some opportunities. Obviously, you're not going to make money every single day, but at the same time, that's all you can do. Provided with opportunities, make as much as you possibly can when you can. And this market is giving it to you right now. To the downside, if you don't short, that's one thing. But this market is providing an opportunity for volatility, and there's money to be made, guys. We'll be back tomorrow. Actually, Tony will be back tomorrow with Neil to present you guys with those opportunities. And
yeah, you better believe we're gonna miss you, because it's all about getting that perspective, and I love getting your perspective. That's what it's all about. We miss Sean. Sean's feeling pretty good, and which is a good sign. So hopefully he's gonna recover pretty quickly there. I know he's missing out trading these markets. We got Tony and Miss V on the bell. Thank you so much for the super chat, Nathan Wilder. You're the man. Thank you for tuning in, man. It's all about you guys. We love doing the show. Trading is a lot of fun when the market moves. It sucks when the market goes down like this. No one likes it. But ultimately, there's always an opportunity out there for us to trade. Always fun. You've been asked to get the last ring in, Tony. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Ring it. There it is. You know what, I'm sitting there staring at it, and I'm actually not sure myself who got the last ring. I definitely feel like it was Tony there, so congratulations for getting the last word in there. Tony, I saw last second before we go to Brennan here, I did see in the chat someone asking if the EU could block a deal, like the Twitter deal.
No.
The EU blocking a U.S. company going private, if there's a way for that to happen, I don't understand. I would say no, but I learn things all the time. I don't see any way that could be remotely possible. It's a U.S. company going private. Yes, they're global, but usually that's antitrust. Like if you operate and there's competition issues, maybe. Brendo, how did the markets finish up there?
Or down?
No, nothing.
Yeah.
Down?
It's not pretty, guys, but we can show you the board here. A lot of red to deal with, unfortunately. It is the NASDAQ, as we said, gave yesterday back and then some. 3.8% there leading, 2.28 for the S&P 500. Anyways, let's move on, because that's not fun to look at.
Goes Microsoft to the downside. That's a little early, though.
That's early.
Yeah, no, I'm going to say no to that.
Somebody fat-fingered.
Still going. How's the volume on this? Microsoft heading to the downside. There goes the market with it. But
sorry. I went to switch to go check TweetDeck, and sorry.
Yeah. No, this is just ECN. This is just no. I refuse to believe this is way too early for Microsoft. We could be wrong on this.
It's out. They're out. It's out.
Yeah.
It's out.
Guidance. I want to know what guidance is. There you go. There's Microsoft running to the upside now as it takes off to 275. Yeah, we ran down to.
Oh, what a stink bid opportunity there, but
yeah. Okay. A quick snipe down to 261, and now is running up. It's all over the place. We'll wait for the story once we actually settle down. But for now, Microsoft's all over the place, it seems.
That was that was an absolute crazy move in. It did break that support on the daily chart and then snaps right back to it as I guess we're digesting. You want to see what the guidance is because that's what it's going to be, the forward guidance. But Microsoft, we're going to get Alphabet, absolutely wild. I mean, if we hold, if we flush out and hold this level, that would be a great thing for the market here. But that's what it's going to be coming down to, guys. It's about Softy and Google. Do we have any numbers there, Brendo? Google's out too.
It's just messing around. It hasn't found any sort of footing just yet.
No.
It's working that 2373. Am I right with this, or is this frozen?
We're just hanging on the low.
Yeah.
It's just chilling on the low today. I did not expect that to happen. I really thought we would either be jailbreaking, rejecting those lows and getting a chance to trade above it, or it would be doom and gloom. Essentially, it's kind of skittish on both ends here. Maybe not a bad thing out. We got Texas Instruments also came out as well. So you have got all the names reporting. Microsoft slightly up. It's at that 272, and like, you know, Google's at the 2300. You're just not seeing a heck of a lot of follow through in either direction already.
Yeah. We're gonna wait till tomorrow. The story will be told tomorrow on what these stocks will do. Microsoft, Google, if you decide to play them, and the indexes themselves. We'll see how that one goes. I see Google falling off a little bit, futures going down. So let's take a quick look at the NASDAQ, because you know what? That's where it matters. Because the NASDAQ futures, NASDAQ heading down, broken 13,000.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, that's not good. So
Texas Instruments got smoked. Yeah, TXN's down. Like, you got to 153. So that was one that I was a bit worried about. Like, what is that going to mean for the semi space? We can't stay here forever, but let's keep in mind, like, this is going to get pretty interesting. This is going to get pretty interesting in about 10 minutes or so, but in the next little bit. But not a good look for Texas Instruments. Thank you guys so much. It was a heck of a lot of fun doing this for you. We're gonna miss you tomorrow, obviously, but it'll be fun to have Tony. And I'm just gonna say, shout out to you, Ms. V. Only live for a couple of weeks. To have traded Tesla and been positive was a big look. For it.
Thank you, Neil.
You got something, Brennan?
I actually have. Thank you, Neil, so much for that. And I want to shout out to Nathan Wilder for sending us $100 super chat. Thank you so much, Nathan. I hope you're having a fantastic, profitable day.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Nathan. It's been an unbelievable day, guys. For the entire team, they're all there. I see you. I see you, Fahad. Hiding their mark, of course, as always. Maggie doing a fantastic job, and Lucas on the ones and twos as well. Liz in the back. Trader Prad was excited over these closes and what's happening after market. And Brennan bringing you real-time news. That buyout deal, by the way, opened up and gave you some winning trades as well. And shout out to Miss V for fantastic trading. Get well, Sean. We want you back. These markets are a heck of a lot of fun right now. You're missing out. We are Trader TV Live. We will catch you guys tomorrow. Gonna miss you, Arun.